Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, I've had that compost bin for years, vegetable scraps, eggshells, paper, nothing suspicious. Then I noticed white fragments buried in the moist soil. At first I thought they were chicken bones, but they were too thick, too human. I pulled out 5 pieces, clean breaks, one had what looked like a knuckle. I didn't call anyone, I buried them deeper, scared of what they might mean. But each week more show up, not scraps, not garbage, remains. I live alone, I don't throw out meat. And yet someone keeps feeding my compost what shouldn't exist. The smell hit me first that morning, not the usual earthy decay I'd grown accustomed to, but something sharper, more metallic. I crouched beside the wooden frame, my knees sinking into the damp grass. The bin sat in the corner of my yard, half hidden behind an overgrown hedge that I'd never bothered to trim. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. There they were again, 3 new pieces this time, resting on top of yesterday's coffee grounds like some grotesque offering. The bone fragments were pristine white, almost bleached looking, completely different from the rotting banana peels and wilted lettuce leaves surrounding them. I reached for the largest piece, my fingers hesitating just above its smooth surface. The texture was unmistakable, dense, solid, with that particular weight that only comes from something that once lived in breath. I had questions, but no one to ask. My nearest neighbor lived 2 blocks away, and we'd never spoken beyond polite nods. The previous owner of my house had been an elderly woman who died peacefully in her sleep, or so the realtor had told me. I bought the place because it was quiet, isolated, perfect for someone who preferred solitude. Now that isolation felt different, heavy, oppressive, like I was being watched. The first time I'd found bones, I'd convinced myself they were from a large bird, maybe a turkey someone had thrown away carelessly. But as weeks passed, the evidence became impossible to ignore. The fragments were too uniform, too deliberately placed. Someone was doing this intentionally, and they knew exactly where to find my compost bin. I started checking security camera footage from the house across the street. The owner had installed multiple cameras after a break-in, and from my research, I knew one of them pointed directly toward my yard. I waited until he left for work, then approached his front door with a rehearsed story about a stolen package. His wife answered, a thin woman with nervous eyes who invited me in when I mentioned the cameras. She led me to a small office where multiple monitors displayed different angles of the neighborhood. I explained my situation carefully, watching her face for any sign of recognition or guilt. She seemed genuinely concerned, scrolling through days of footage with practiced efficiency. We watched hours of grainy black and white video, but the camera's angle only caught the edge of my property, nothing useful. As we reviewed the footage, she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Her husband had been working late shifts recently, leaving the house around midnight and returning before dawn. She didn't know where he went, and when she asked, he'd become defensive, claiming it was work-related. The timing matched perfectly with when I'd been finding new bones. I thanked her and left, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd told me something important. That evening I positioned myself at my bedroom window with a clear view of the street. I waited, watching the house across from mine, fighting sleep as the hours crawled by. Just after midnight I saw movement, a figure emerging from the side yard, not the front door. Tall, wearing dark clothing, moving with purpose toward my property. My heart hammered as I watched the figure approach my compost bin. In the dim light, I could make out deliberate movements, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. They stayed for several minutes, then disappeared back into the shadows. I wanted to confront them, to demand answers, but fear kept me frozen at the window. The next morning brought not just new bones, but something else, a small piece of fabric caught on the edge of the bin, dark blue, rough textured like work clothes. I held it up to the light, studying the weave, the slight fading that suggested it had been worn often. This was evidence, real evidence that someone had been here. I spent the day researching, making phone calls, trying to understand what I was dealing with. The bones were definitely human. I'd taken photos and compared them to medical illustrations online. But where were they coming from, and why my compost bin? I lived on a quiet street where nothing ever happened, where people kept to themselves and minded their own business. The fabric led me to a local uniform supply company. I pretended to be shopping for work clothes, studying the different materials and colors available. The clerk, a friendly woman who seemed eager to help, showed me various options. When I described the fabric I'd found, she nodded knowingly. It was from a line of uniforms they supplied to several local businesses, cleaning services, maintenance companies, healthcare facilities. That evening I made a decision that would change everything. I called the police, but not to report a crime. I told them I was concerned about my elderly neighbor who I hadn't seen in weeks. I gave them the address of the house across the street, claiming I was worried about the man who lived there. It was a lie, but it got them to pay attention. The officer who responded was young, probably new to the job, but he took my concerns seriously. He knocked on the door, spoke with the woman I'd met earlier, and asked to speak with her husband. That's when things got interesting. The husband wasn't home, hadn't been home in 3 days, according to his wife. She was scared, confused, claiming he'd been acting strangely for weeks. I watched from my window as more police cars arrived. They searched the property, and I could see them focusing on the backyard, the garage, anywhere someone might hide evidence. I felt a mixture of relief and terror, relief that someone was finally investigating, terror about what they might find. The bones stopped appearing after that. For 2 weeks, my compost bin remained normal, filled only with my own kitchen scraps and yard waste. But the silence felt wrong, like the calm before a storm. I found myself checking the bin multiple times each day, almost disappointed when I found nothing unusual. Then I discovered something that made me question everything I thought I knew. While cleaning out my garage, I found a box I'd never seen before, hidden behind old paint cans. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, showing various locations around my neighborhood. Most were unremarkable: houses, yards, parked cars. But several showed my compost bin from different angles, taken at different times of day. The photos were dated, going back months before I'd first noticed the bones. Someone had been watching my property, studying my routines, planning something. But the handwriting on the back of the photos was shaky, uncertain, like someone who was ill or scared. And the perspective of the shots suggested they'd been taken from inside my own house. I called the police again, but this time I was honest about everything. I showed them the bones I'd saved, the fabric, the photographs. The detective who responded was older, more experienced, and his expression grew increasingly grim as I explained the situation. He asked questions I couldn't answer about my past, my family, anyone who might have access to my property. That's when I remembered the key. The previous owner's daughter had given me a spare key when I'd bought the house, mentioning that her mother had always kept one hidden for emergencies. I'd never used it, never even thought about it, but someone else might have known about it, might have been using it to access my property. The investigation that followed revealed things I wish I'd never learned. The previous owner hadn't died peacefully in her sleep. She'd been missing for weeks before her body was found, and the cause of death was never definitively determined. The daughter who'd sold me the house had been struggling with mental health issues, and she'd been staying in my house periodically, even after the sale. But the most disturbing discovery came when they searched the basement. Behind a false wall that I'd never noticed, they found a small room filled with medical equipment, bone saws, and detailed anatomical charts. The room smelled of chemicals and something else I couldn't identify. It was clean, organized, like a laboratory where someone had been conducting experiments. The case never went to trial. The daughter disappeared before they could arrest her, and without a body or a clear victim, the evidence was circumstantial. The police theorized that she'd been using my property to dispose of remains from her illegal activities, but they couldn't prove it. The bones I'd found were sent for analysis, but they were too degraded to identify. I moved out of that house, but I never forgot the feeling of finding those bones, the weight of them in my hands, the knowledge that someone had been watching me, using me. Sometimes I wonder if I was meant to find them, if I was part of some larger plan I never understood. The new owners of my old house have no idea what happened there, and I've never told them. But I still check my compost bin every morning, even in my new house. And sometimes, in the quiet moments just before dawn, I catch myself listening for footsteps in the yard, waiting for the sound of someone who shouldn't be there, leaving things that shouldn't exist. Crime 2, I was digging to plant lavender. The shovel struck glass. I cleared the dirt and uncovered a full mirror buried flat like a trap. It was framed in rusted iron and my reflection looked slightly off. I dug it out and leaned it against the shed. That night I had dreams of someone else using it, someone crying into it. I woke up with dirt under my nails and no memory of sleep. The mirror was wet like it had been sobbing. I don't know who buried it or why. But I wish I'd never touched it. The previous owner had left no forwarding address. The realtor mentioned she'd been in a hurry to sell, accepting my offer without negotiation. I'd thought it was my lucky break. The house had been empty for months before I moved in, and the neighbors kept their distance when I asked about her. They'd mumble something about keeping to themselves and change the subject. I started noticing things after I brought the mirror inside. Small things at first. My coffee cup would be in a different spot on the counter. Books I'd left open would be closed. The shower curtain would be pulled when I was certain I'd left it open. I blamed it on the stress of moving, the unfamiliarity of a new space playing tricks on my mind. But then I found the photographs. They were tucked behind the mirror's backing, discovered when I tried to clean the glass properly. Polaroids, faded and water-damaged, showing the same room I was standing in. Different furniture, different wall color, but unmistakably the same space. In some photos, there was a woman with dark hair, always turned away from the camera, always near the mirror. In others, the mirror reflected empty rooms while someone clearly stood in front of it. I took the photos to the local library, hoping their newspaper archives might hold answers. The librarian, an elderly woman with careful eyes, recognized the house immediately. She pulled out a folder of clippings from several years back. The headline spoke of a missing person case that had gone cold. A woman who'd vanished without a trace, leaving behind only scattered belongings and neighbors who insisted they'd heard arguing late at night. The investigating officer had been thorough, according to the articles. He'd interviewed everyone on the street, searched the house multiple times, followed every lead. But there had been no signs of forced entry, no evidence of struggle, no indication of where she might have gone. The case file mentioned personal belongings left behind, including jewelry and important documents, things no one would leave voluntarily. I called the police station, asking to speak with the detective who'd handled the case. The voice on the other end grew quiet when I mentioned the address. He agreed to meet me at the house that afternoon. His name was Detective Sullivan, and he carried himself like a man who'd seen too much. He examined the mirror with the same intensity he might have used years earlier, running his fingers along the frame, checking the backing where I'd found the photographs. When I showed him the Polaroids, his expression shifted. He'd never seen them before. They hadn't been part of the original investigation. "We searched every inch of this place," he said, his voice carrying the weight of an unsolved case. "Tore up floorboards, checked walls, even dug up parts of the yard. Never found anything buried." But I had found something. We both stared at the mirror, and I noticed he avoided looking directly at his own reflection. He told me about the last person to see the missing woman alive, a neighbor who'd heard shouting, followed by an unusual silence. How the woman's car had remained in the driveway for days after she was reported missing. How her coffee cup had been found on the kitchen table, still warm when police arrived. That evening, after the detective left, I sat in the living room with the mirror facing me. I'd placed it there deliberately, studying my reflection for any of the distortions I'd noticed before. The woman in the photographs had been about my height, with similar build. In the damaged Polaroids, when turned at certain angles, our silhouettes were nearly identical. I started paying closer attention to my dreams. Each morning I'd wake with the taste of dirt in my mouth, my hands stained with soil that hadn't been there when I'd gone to bed. The mirror's surface would be clouded with condensation, as if someone had been breathing on it heavily. I began leaving tape across the seams of windows and doors, checking each morning to see if any had been disturbed. The breakthrough came when I found the recordings. Hidden in the basement behind a loose stone in the foundation was a small digital recorder. The audio was poor quality, but I could make out voices, two people arguing. One voice was definitely female, pleading, desperate. The other was harder to distinguish, lower, more controlled. The conversation was fragmented, but certain phrases stood out clearly. "You can't keep doing this. No one will believe you. I have proof now." "Proof of what?" The recording cut off abruptly. I played it dozens of times, trying to identify the second voice. It was familiar in a way that made my skin crawl, but I couldn't place it. I took the recorder to a friend who worked in audio engineering, hoping he could clean up the sound quality. While waiting for the enhanced audio, I decided to dig deeper into the mirror's history. The previous owner had lived in the house for only 2 years before disappearing, but the mirror looked much older than that. I contacted antique dealers, trying to trace its origin. One dealer recognized the style immediately. It was from an estate sale that had taken place nearly a decade earlier. The estate had belonged to a collector who died under mysterious circumstances. The dealer remembered the mirror specifically because it had been one of the few pieces that hadn't sold immediately. People seemed uncomfortable around it, he said. It had changed hands several times before ending up in a second-hand shop. I visited the shop, a cramped space filled with forgotten belongings. The owner, a thin man with nervous energy, remembered the mirror well. He'd been eager to sell it, he said, because it made customers uneasy. The woman who'd bought it had been insistent about taking it immediately, paying cash without trying to negotiate the price. She seemed scared of something, he told me, kept looking over her shoulder like someone was following her. That night I set up a camera facing the mirror. I wanted to document whatever was happening while I slept. The footage from the first night showed nothing unusual, but on the second night there was a gap in the recording. 37 minutes of missing time, with no indication of what had caused the interruption. My friend called about the audio enhancement. He'd managed to clean up the recording significantly, and what he'd found disturbed him. The second voice in the argument wasn't just familiar, it was identical to the first. The same woman having a conversation with herself, but the tones were different, the inflections distinct, as if two different personalities were speaking. I listened to the enhanced recording in my car, parked outside the audio studio. The clarity was unsettling. The woman's voice shifted between desperate pleading and cold calculation. She was arguing with someone, but that someone was her own reflection. The mirror had been present during the recording. I could hear the echo of her voice bouncing off its surface. The investigation took on new urgency. I researched the psychology of mirrors, their historical use in various practices, their ability to create psychological disturbances in certain individuals. I learned about cases where people had become obsessed with their reflections, developing alternate personalities that seemed to exist only in mirrored spaces. But this felt different, more complex. The woman hadn't just been talking to herself, she'd been responding to something that was talking back. The recording captured subtle differences in timing, moments where she paused as if listening to responses that weren't audible on the tape. I began sleeping in different rooms, avoiding the mirror entirely, but the disturbances continued. Objects moved, sounds echoed through the house, and I'd wake to find muddy footprints that matched my own feet. The mirror's surface remained clouded each morning, despite my efforts to cover it completely. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. A neighbor I'd never spoken to knocked on my door one evening. She was elderly, with the careful demeanor of someone who'd kept secrets for too long. She'd been watching me dig in the yard, she said, and it had brought back memories she'd tried to forget. She'd known the previous owner better than she'd let on. The woman had confided in her about strange experiences in the house, dreams where she wasn't herself, conversations with someone who looked exactly like her but felt completely different. The woman had been convinced that something was trying to replace her, using the mirror as a gateway. She buried it to stop the dreams, the neighbor told me. But then she couldn't sleep at all. She said it was still calling to her from underground. The neighbor had helped dig the hole. They'd buried the mirror together, hoping it would end the disturbances. But the woman's condition had only worsened. She'd begun showing up at the neighbor's house at strange hours, claiming she wasn't safe in her own home. The last time anyone saw her, she'd been standing in her yard, staring at the spot where the mirror was buried. I realized I'd been naive to think digging it up would solve anything. The mirror hadn't been buried to hide evidence, it had been buried to contain something, and now I'd released it back into the house. The woman hadn't vanished, she'd been replaced. The mirror had shown her what she could become, and eventually she'd chosen to become it. The recordings, the photographs, the disturbances, they were all evidence of a transformation that had been happening gradually. The woman had been fighting herself, literally, trying to maintain control over her own identity. But the mirror had been patient, persistent. It had shown her possibilities, alternate versions of herself that were stronger, more decisive, less burdened by conscience. I packed my belongings that same night, but as I loaded the car, I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror. For just a moment, I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. The eyes were mine, but the expression was different, calculating, pleased. I drove away, leaving the mirror behind, but I can still feel it calling, and sometimes, in storefront windows or bathroom mirrors, I catch glimpses of someone who looks like me but isn't. The woman in the house had found a way to escape, but she'd left something behind in her place, something that was learning to be her. I don't know who I'm becoming, but I know I'm not who I was when I first picked up that shovel. Crime 3, every bulb I replace in the hallway gets changed, not burned out, swapped. Mine are bright white, these are amber tinted, buzzing slightly. I screw mine back in. The next day, the amber returns. I tried hiding a camera, but it got knocked over. I checked the circuit box. It was labeled in handwriting I didn't recognize. Now the lights flicker randomly, and sometimes shadows appear where no one stands. I think someone is trying to show me something, or scare me. Either way, I don't want to see what they're waiting to reveal. The handwriting on the circuit box labels bothered me more than the light bulbs. It was neat, precise, nothing like the scrawl from the previous owner. I'd lived here for 3 years. 3 years of thinking I knew every corner of this house. The labels read like a blueprint: master bedroom left wall, kitchen, island circuit, basement workshop. Workshop. I'd never seen a workshop down there. I descended the basement stairs, my fingers trailing along the cool concrete wall. The smell hit me first, sawdust mixed with something metallic, sharp. At the far end, behind the water heater, I found a door I'd somehow missed. The handle turned easily, as if it had been used recently. Inside, workbenches lined the walls. Tools hung in perfect rows, their outlines traced in black marker on pegboard. Everything organized, pristine, waiting. A thin layer of dust covered most surfaces, but certain areas were clean. Fresh wood shavings scattered beneath a vise. A coffee mug, empty but still warm to the touch. I found the first photograph tucked between the pages of a notebook filled with electrical diagrams. A woman sleeping in what looked like my bedroom. The angle suggested it was taken from the hallway through the partially open door. The timestamp showed it was taken last month. I'd been alone that night. More photographs filled a manila envelope hidden behind paint cans. Me cooking breakfast, me watching television, me replacing light bulbs in the hallway. The camera angles were impossible, too high, too perfectly positioned, unless someone had been inside my walls. The notebook contained detailed sketches of my house's layout, but not the version I knew. This showed additional passages, hidden spaces between walls, access points I'd never noticed. Red X marks indicated specific locations: behind the living room bookshelf, under the kitchen sink, inside the bedroom closet. I pressed my ear against the living room wall where the diagram showed a passage, hollow. My knuckles knocked against drywall that sounded different from the rest. I found the seam, barely visible, running vertically from floor to ceiling. The bookshelf moved easier than it should have, revealing a narrow crawl space barely wide enough for a person. The passage was clean, recently used. Battery-powered LED strips provided dim illumination. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them, not just of me but of others. Different houses, different lives, all captured in the same intimate, invasive way. Some photos were old, yellowed at the edges. Others looked recent, digital prints still crisp. At the end of the passage, a small room opened up. A camping chair faced a wall covered in monitors, each displaying different angles of my house. The feeds were live. I watched myself from the basement, standing in the hidden room, staring at myself on the screens. A logbook sat open on a folding table. Entries dated back years, different handwriting styles, different observers. The most recent entries were in the same neat script from the circuit box labels. They documented my daily routines, my habits, my vulnerabilities. The final entry, dated yesterday, simply read, "Subject becoming suspicious. Initiate final phase." I heard footsteps above me, slow, deliberate, moving through my living room. The person walked to the bookshelf, paused, then continued toward the basement door. I watched on the monitors as a figure descended the stairs, average height, wearing dark clothing, face obscured by shadows that seemed too deep for the basement lighting. The footsteps stopped outside the workshop. I held my breath, pressed against the back wall of the hidden room. The door creaked open. Through the monitors, I saw the figure enter the workshop, move directly to the paint cans, retrieve something from behind them. Then the lights went out, all of them. The monitors went dark, the LED strips died, and I was trapped in absolute darkness in a space I didn't know existed in my own home. I felt along the walls, searching for the passage back. My fingers found smooth drywall, solid and unbroken. The opening was gone. Or maybe I'd become disoriented in the darkness, lost in a maze of passages I didn't understand. The smell of sawdust grew stronger. Fresh wood shavings crunched under my feet. In the distance, I heard drilling, the sound of construction, someone sealing passages, blocking exits, preparing something I couldn't see. I found my phone, used its flashlight to examine the walls. The photographs were gone. The monitors had been removed. The camping chair was nowhere to be found. The room looked like it had been abandoned for years, covered in dust and cobwebs. But my fingerprints were still fresh in the dust on the table where the logbook had been. The impressions of my shoes marked the floor. I had been here. I had seen those things. I eventually found a way out, emerging through a panel in my bedroom closet that I'd never noticed before. The house looked normal. The light bulbs in the hallway were bright white, my original bulbs. The circuit box labels were gone. The basement workshop was empty, just concrete walls and a water heater. But the photographs from the envelope were scattered across my kitchen table. All of them, including new ones I hadn't seen before. Pictures of me in the hidden room, standing in the darkness, staring at blank walls. At the bottom of the pile, a note in that same precise handwriting. Welcome to the program. Your training begins now. I still live in the house. I still change the light bulbs when they burn out. But now I know someone is watching, documenting, preparing. The question isn't whether they'll reveal themselves. The question is whether I'm the observer or the observed, whether I'm uncovering their secrets or becoming part of their collection. The bulbs in the hallway are amber again. I don't change them anymore. I've learned to live with the shadows they cast, the way they make everything look different, uncertain. Sometimes I catch myself documenting my own routines, taking notes on my own behavior, as if I'm studying myself for someone else's purposes. I think I'm becoming exactly what they wanted me to become. The question is, what happens when the training is complete? Crime 4, it's just a digital photo frame, a gift I never set up, but lately it cycles through photos I've never taken. Me in the kitchen, me asleep, me looking directly at the camera. I tried unplugging it, turned back on. I checked the SD card, empty. The photos keep getting closer, angles I don't recognize. One had something blurred behind me. I don't know if it's a person or something else. But every day it feels like the frame is trying to remind me of something I forgot. Or deny something I never did. The frame arrived 3 months ago. A housewarming gift from my cousin, still in its original packaging when I moved into this rental house. The kind of generic present you buy when you don't know what else to give. I set it on the hallway table and forgot about it completely. The house had bigger problems, leaky faucets, creaky floors, windows that wouldn't lock properly. The frame seemed harmless enough, displaying factory preset images of sunsets and mountains. Then the photos changed. I first noticed it during my morning routine. Instead of the usual landscape, there was a photo of my kitchen counter, taken from an angle I'd never seen before. The lighting was dim, almost purple, like early dawn or late dusk. My coffee mug sat exactly where I'd left it the night before, but the perspective was wrong. Too high, as if someone had been standing on a chair, looking down. I assumed it was some kind of malfunction. Digital frames pull images from various sources, don't they? Maybe it had connected to someone else's cloud storage. Technology glitches all the time. I unplugged it, waited a few minutes, then plugged it back in. The factory sunset returned. But 2 days later there was another photo. This time my bedroom, captured while I was sleeping. The frame sat in the hallway, nowhere near my bedroom door, yet somehow it had this image. My face was turned toward the camera, peaceful but vulnerable. The quality was surprisingly sharp, professional almost, not the grainy mess you'd expect from a hidden camera or phone. I called my cousin to ask about the frame's specifications. She barely remembered buying it, said she'd grabbed it from some electronics store during a clearance sale. No special features, no wireless connectivity, just a basic digital frame that played images from an SD card. When I checked the card slot, it was empty, always had been. The photos kept coming, me washing dishes, me reading on the couch, me standing in the shower though the bathroom door had been closed and the frame was still in the hallway. Each image felt like a violation, but also like a reminder. The angles were intimate, familiar, as if whoever took them knew exactly where I'd be and when. I started checking the house more carefully. The windows, the doors, the basement, looking for cameras, hidden devices, anything that could explain the photos. The house was old, built in the 70s, with plenty of places to hide equipment, but I found nothing. No holes in the walls, no suspicious wiring, no cameras tucked behind furniture. Then I found the folder. It was wedged behind a loose baseboard in the bedroom closet, discovered only because I was searching for hidden cameras. A manila envelope containing dozens of printed photos, all of this house, all of me. Some were clearly taken from outside, through windows I thought were private. Others were from inside, impossibly close, as if the photographer had been standing right next to me. But the dates written on the backs were wrong. They went back months before I'd moved in. Some were dated from when I was still living across town, still married, still a different person entirely. Photos of me in this house I'd never seen before, doing things I couldn't remember doing. The handwriting on the back of each photo was mine. I recognized it immediately. The way I loop my letters, the specific slant of my cursive, the small flourishes I make without thinking. But I had no memory of writing these dates, no memory of taking these photos, no memory of being in this house before I signed the lease. I called my cousin again, this time more urgently, asked her where exactly she'd bought the frame, when, from whom. She became defensive, said she couldn't remember details from months ago, asked why I was making such a big deal about a simple gift, but something in her voice had changed. A hesitation that wasn't there before. The next photo showed me having that exact phone conversation. The frame had captured me standing in the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, the expression on my face a mixture of confusion and growing panic. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken while I was talking to her. I realized then that the frame wasn't just displaying photos, it was creating them. Somehow, impossibly, it was documenting my life in real time, storing images I'd never taken, preserving moments I didn't remember posing for. But the older photos, the ones with my handwriting, suggested something else entirely. They suggested I'd been documenting myself for months, taking photos in a house I didn't remember visiting, leaving myself clues in handwriting I didn't remember creating. I started sleeping with the frame unplugged, stored in a drawer wrapped in towels. But every morning it was back on the hallway table, plugged in, displaying new images, me sleepwalking to retrieve it. Me setting it up carefully, precisely, as if following a routine I'd performed countless times. The photos were getting closer now, extreme close-ups of my face, my hands, my eyes. The last one showed me staring directly into the camera, my expression calm and knowing, as if I was fully aware of being photographed, as if I was the one taking the photo. I don't know what happened in the months before I moved here. I don't know why there are photos of me in this house from before I signed the lease. I don't know whose handwriting is on the back of those photos, even though it looks exactly like mine. But I know the frame is trying to tell me something. Each photo is a piece of a puzzle I don't remember starting. And every day, as the images get closer and more intimate, I feel like I'm approaching a truth I'm not sure I want to discover. The frame sits in the hallway now, displaying a photo of me writing these words. I don't remember posing for it. I don't remember setting up the camera. But there I am, fingers moving across the keyboard, completely absorbed in documenting something I may have been trying to forget. The date on the back in my own handwriting is from tomorrow. Crime 5, routine cleaning turned into a nightmare. As I emptied the vacuum canister, I heard something click on the floor. It was a tooth, adult molar, cracked but intact. I haven't had guests, haven't injured myself. I searched the house, convinced there had been a break-in. Nothing. But the next week I found another, and then a third. I keep them in a jar, unsure what to do. They feel warm sometimes. I check my mouth obsessively, but all mine are still there for now. The first tooth changed everything. I remember the weight of it in my palm, heavier than expected, with that distinct yellow tinge that comes from years of coffee and neglect. The crack ran from the crown to the root, a perfect fault line that spoke of sudden trauma. I placed it on my kitchen counter and stared at it for what felt like hours, my mind racing through impossible explanations. I've lived alone in this house for 3 years. The locks are secure, the windows intact. I began documenting everything, checking every corner, every closet, every space where someone might hide. The floorboards didn't creak with unfamiliar weight. The dust patterns remained undisturbed, yet that tooth had to come from somewhere. The second tooth appeared exactly 1 week later, nestled among the usual debris of hair and lint. This one was different, a canine, sharp and predatory, with a gold filling that caught the light. I held it up to the window, studying the dental work, professional, expensive, the kind of restoration that requires multiple visits and careful planning. I started keeping detailed records, photographs from every angle, measurements, notes about texture and color. The third tooth arrived on schedule, a premolar this time, worn smooth on one side as if its owner had a habit of grinding their teeth during sleep. The pattern was becoming clear, even if the source remained hidden. My neighbor mentioned seeing dental records scattered in the wind behind the house. She thought it was odd, finding medical documents in the alley where the garbage trucks pass. I thanked her and went searching, but found nothing except the usual urban debris. Still, her words planted a seed of unease that grew with each passing day. The jar sits on my nightstand now, 3 teeth rattling softly whenever I move. Sometimes I catch myself reaching for it in the dark, rolling each tooth between my fingers like worry stones. They've become warm to the touch, as if retaining some echo of the body they once inhabited. The sensation makes my skin crawl, yet I can't stop myself from checking on them. I contacted my dentist, claiming concern about my oral health. The examination revealed nothing unusual. All my teeth accounted for, roots intact, no signs of trauma or decay. Yet the evidence in my jar suggests otherwise. Someone's mouth is missing these pieces, and somehow they've found their way into my vacuum, into my life, into my sleepless nights. The fourth tooth arrived yesterday, a front tooth this time, the kind that shows when you smile. There's a small chip on the corner, and I can't help but imagine the moment it happened, a fall perhaps, or a blow to the face. The enamel is stained with something dark that I don't want to identify. I've started researching missing persons cases in the area. The official records are sparse, but the patterns emerge if you know where to look. Dental records are often the only way to identify remains when other methods fail. I think about the person these teeth belonged to, wonder if they're still out there somewhere, incomplete, searching for the pieces of themselves that somehow ended up in my home. The weight of the jar has increased, not just from the accumulating teeth, but from the knowledge they represent. Each one is a small piece of evidence, a fragment of a story I'm not sure I want to understand. Yet I can't stop collecting them, can't stop wondering what they mean and why they've chosen me as their keeper. My sleep has become restless. I dream of empty sockets and bleeding gums, of mouths that speak without words. I wake with the taste of copper on my tongue and the feeling that something important has been lost. The teeth in the jar seem to watch me, silent witnesses to a truth I'm not prepared to face. Last night I caught myself in the bathroom mirror, running my tongue over my teeth, counting them obsessively. They're all there, but something feels different. The alignment seems off, the bite unfamiliar. I tell myself it's paranoia, the result of too many sleepless nights and too many unanswered questions. The vacuum sits in the closet now, unused. I can't bring myself to empty it again, afraid of what else might tumble out. Instead, I sweep by hand, examining every speck of debris, every fragment that might hold meaning. The house feels different now, charged with the presence of something unresolved. The jar continues to grow heavier. 5 teeth now, each one a small mystery wrapped in enamel and dentin. I've started leaving it by the window as if the light might reveal something I've missed, but the teeth keep their secrets warm and silent, waiting for something I can't name. I know I should report this to someone, but who would believe such a story? The evidence is too strange, too impossible to explain through normal channels. Instead, I document everything, creating a record of the impossible that unfolds in my home week by week. The truth remains elusive, hidden somewhere between the teeth in my jar and the gaps in my understanding. I continue to search, to question, to wonder who these pieces belonged to and why they've found their way to me. The answers feel close sometimes, just beyond reach, like a word on the tip of my tongue that refuses to form. The vacuum canister sits empty now, but I know it's only a matter of time before I find another tooth, another piece of the puzzle that seems to have no solution. Until then, I wait, and I watch, and I wonder what other secrets my home might be hiding in the shadows between the ordinary and the impossible. Crime 6, my vent started to smell metallic sour. I assumed a rodent had crawled in and died. I removed the cover and reached in. My fingers came back sticky, dark red. I pulled out a cloth bundle soaked in blood. Inside was a photograph, burned around the edges, water damaged, torn, but I recognized my old apartment in the background. The person in the image had their face scratched out. I've never taken that photo, but someone who had access to my air. I haven't turned the heat on since. The maintenance man came the next morning. He looked at the photo without saying much, just nodded like he'd seen worse. His hands were clean, but there was something under his fingernails, dark crescents that made me step back. He suggested I check the other vents, all of them. His voice was steady, professional, but his eyes kept darting toward the hallway where my neighbor's door stood slightly ajar. I started with the bedroom vent. More cloth, more blood, but this time there was something else. A key, not mine. It was old brass with scratches that looked deliberate. I held it up to the light and saw initials carved deep into the metal. The same initials that were on the mailbox 2 doors down, the apartment where the woman lived alone, the one who always seemed to be watching from her window. The police officer who came to file the report looked tired. He took notes, bagged the evidence, asked the usual questions, but when I mentioned the neighbor, something shifted in his expression. He asked me to repeat her description. Then he asked if I'd noticed any strange smells coming from her unit. I hadn't, but now that he mentioned it, there was something sweet, cloying, like flowers left too long in water. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound from the vents made me freeze. The building was old, the walls thin. I could hear footsteps above me moving in patterns that didn't make sense. Back and forth, then silence, deep, absolute silence that felt heavier than the sounds. The next morning I found another photograph. This one was slipped under my door, face down. When I turned it over, I saw myself sleeping. My bedroom, my bed, my face peaceful and unaware. The angle was wrong, though. It was taken from inside my room, from the corner where my dresser stood. But there was nowhere for someone to hide there. Nowhere except the vent directly above. I called the maintenance man again. This time he brought tools and a flashlight. We crawled through the ventilation system together, following the narrow metal passages that connected every apartment in the building. The smell grew stronger as we moved deeper, not just blood now, but something else, something that made my stomach turn. We found the source in the central air shaft, a space between floors that shouldn't have existed, a hollow area where someone had been living. Blankets, empty food containers, and dozens of photographs, all of me, all of my neighbors, all taken from impossible angles, through vents, through cracks in walls, through spaces no person should have been able to access. But the photographs weren't the worst part. The worst part was the journal, page after page of observations, schedules, habits. My routine mapped out to the minute. When I left for work, when I came home, when I showered, when I slept. And at the bottom of each page, the same question written over and over: which one first? The police searched the building. They questioned every tenant, every visitor, every delivery person. But the person who had been living in our walls was gone, vanished like smoke through the very vents they had called home. The only trace they left behind was the smell, lingering in the air ducts, and the knowledge that someone had been watching us all, choosing among us, planning something we would never fully understand. I moved out 3 weeks later, found a new place, top floor, no air conditioning. But sometimes, late at night, I still smell that metallic scent, and I wonder if they followed me, if they're still out there, still watching, still choosing. The photograph I found that first day is locked in a safety deposit box now, but I remember every detail: the burned edges, the water damage, the scratched out face. What I don't remember is taking it. What I can't explain is why, when I look at it closely, the person in the image looks exactly like me. Same height, same build, same clothes I wore that very day. But the face is gone, scratched away so violently that the paper underneath is torn and stained. Someone wanted to erase me before I even knew they existed. The case remains open. The detective calls sometimes, asks if I've remembered anything new, if I've noticed anyone following me. But how do you report a feeling? How do you explain the certainty that you're being watched by someone who knows you better than you know yourself? I check my vents every morning now. I listen for sounds that don't belong. I watch for shadows that move when they shouldn't. But mostly I wonder about that photograph. Who took it? When? And why did they scratch out my face with such fury, such hatred, such intimate knowledge of exactly how to hurt me? The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Some predators are better left in the dark. Because if I found out who was living in my walls, if I discovered who had been watching me sleep, planning my future, marking my days like a calendar countdown, I'm not sure I could handle the answer. The blood in my ventilation system has been cleaned away. The photographs are with the police. The journal is evidence in a case that may never be solved, but the feeling remains, the certainty that somewhere in some dark space between walls, someone is still watching, still waiting, still choosing. And I'm still afraid to turn on the heat. Crime 7, it was left on my porch, no return address, no name. Inside was a notebook filled with tight cursive. Each page described a murder in graphic detail, tools, motives, victims. At first I thought it was fiction, until I saw my own address mentioned on page 47. My own furniture, my clothing. I haven't told anyone. I keep reading. I'm not finished yet, but I'm terrified the last page will describe something that hasn't happened yet. The brown paper wrapping had been torn hastily, as if whoever delivered it wanted to be sure I'd open it immediately. The notebook itself was unremarkable black leather cover, worn at the edges, the kind you'd find in any office supply store. But the handwriting inside was deliberate, methodical. Someone had taken their time with every word. I carried it to my kitchen table, the same one described on page 47. The author had noted its scratches, the coffee ring stain near the left corner, even the way the afternoon light hit it from the window, details no stranger should know. The first entry was dated 6 months ago, a woman found in her apartment, strangled with a silk scarf. The writer described her final moments with clinical precision, noting the color of her nail polish, the book left open on her nightstand, the way her cat had hidden under the bed. I checked the local news archives. She was real. The details matched perfectly. Page after page, I found more cases. A man poisoned in his office, his coffee cup still warm when they found him. A teenager who disappeared from a parking lot, her body discovered weeks later in a wooded area. Each story was corroborated by newspaper reports, police statements, details that never made it to the public. Whoever wrote this notebook had access to crime scenes, to information that should have been sealed away. The handwriting never wavered, never showed emotion. It was as if the author was documenting weather patterns rather than human suffering. That steadiness unsettled me more than the graphic descriptions themselves. I started carrying the notebook everywhere, reading it in coffee shops, on park benches, in my car during lunch breaks. People would glance at me, probably wondering why I looked so pale, why my hands shook when I turned the pages. I couldn't explain that I was reading about real deaths, real families destroyed, real investigations that had gone nowhere. The deeper I read, the more I noticed patterns. The author seemed to favor certain types of victims, people who lived alone, who had routine schedules, who wouldn't be missed immediately. They studied their targets extensively, noting their habits, their weaknesses, their daily routines. It was meticulous planning disguised as casual observation. By page 30, I realized the author wasn't just documenting crimes, they were confessing to them. The entries became more personal after that. The author began inserting themselves into the narrative, describing how they felt watching from shadows, how they planned each encounter, how they covered their tracks afterward. They wrote about the satisfaction of completing each task, the way silence fell over a room when life left a body. I should have gone to the police then, should have handed over the notebook and let them handle it, but something kept me reading. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, or maybe I needed to know how deep this went, how many victims there were, how long this had been going on. Page 47 changed everything. My address was written at the top, along with a detailed floor plan of my house. The author had noted where I kept my spare key, which windows didn't lock properly, the pattern of my daily routine. They knew I worked late on certain days, that I walked my dog the same route every evening, that I always forgot to close my bedroom curtains. They had been watching me. The entry described my living room perfectly, the faded blue couch, the stack of books on the coffee table, the way dust gathered on the television screen. They had cataloged my belongings like inventory, noted my habits like a scientist studying a specimen. They even mentioned the scar on my left hand, a detail so specific it made my skin crawl. But the entry ended abruptly. No violence, no final moments described, just observation, planning, preparation, as if they were still deciding. I read the rest of the notebook in one sitting, searching for any mention of my name, my street, anything that might tell me what they intended. The subsequent entries returned to other victims, other crimes, but now I couldn't focus on the details. Every shadow outside my window looked suspicious. Every footstep in the hallway made me freeze. The final entry was dated just 2 weeks ago. Another solitary victim, another detailed confession, but this one was different. The author had made a mistake, left behind evidence. They wrote about the mounting pressure, the possibility of being caught, the need to finish their work before time ran out. They were accelerating. I started researching the crimes mentioned in the notebook, cross-referencing dates and locations with police reports and news articles. Every single case was real. Every victim had actually died. The notebook was a genuine confession to multiple murders, and somehow it had ended up on my doorstep. But who had sent it, and why? The possibilities haunted me. Maybe the author was reaching out for help, finally ready to confess. Maybe they were taunting the police, showing off their successful streak. Or maybe they were preparing for their final act, and I was somehow part of their plan. I checked my locks obsessively, installed new deadbolts, bought curtains for every window. I changed my routine, took different routes to work, varied my schedule. But the feeling of being watched never left. Every stranger on the street could be them. Every package delivery could be another message. The notebook sat on my kitchen table, 47 pages of confessions staring back at me. I knew I should call the police, should turn it over to the authorities. But what if the author was still watching? What if reporting it triggered something worse? I keep reading those 47 pages, searching for clues about the author's identity, looking for anything that might tell me who they are or where they might be. The handwriting offers no hints. The paper is common. The ink is standard. They were careful to leave no trace of themselves except their words. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, still watching, still planning. Sometimes I wonder if the notebook was meant as a warning or a threat. And sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I wonder if the author is closer than I think. The notebook is evidence of something terrible, something that should be stopped. But it's also the only thing standing between me and the unknown. As long as I have it, I know what they've done. I know their methods, their patterns, their preferences. What I don't know is what they're planning next. The last page is still blank, waiting for the final entry, and I'm terrified that when it's written, my name will be at the top. Crime 8, I review footage occasionally. Delivery people, birds, nothing strange, but last night the camera caught something standing at my door, motionless, tall, with a long coat, no face visible. It stood for 23 minutes. My porch light never turned on. I didn't hear a knock. It never moved. When I stepped outside that morning, there were muddy footprints leading away, but no footprints coming in. My door was locked, my alarm untouched. Still, I don't feel safe anymore. The footage quality wasn't perfect, but I could make out details that shouldn't have been there. The figure's coat hung strangely, like it was too big or weighted down. The sleeves were longer than they should be, covering what I assumed were hands. But there was something about the way it stood, perfectly still, that made my skin crawl. No swaying, no shifting weight, no movement that suggested breathing. I called my neighbor across the street. She has cameras too, different angles. Her footage showed nothing, not even a shadow crossing the street, just empty pavement under the streetlights. When I showed her my recording, she went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before uncomfortable questions. My ex-husband installed the doorbell camera when we were still married. He was paranoid about break-ins, about people watching the house. I thought it was excessive then. Now I wonder if he knew something I didn't. He left suddenly, claiming he needed space. But he took his tools, his clothes, and strangely, all the spare keys, even the one hidden under the flower pot. I started checking the footage more carefully, going back weeks. There were small things I had missed before. A shadow that lingered too long by the mailbox. A car parked across the street that appeared on multiple nights but never during the day. The same tall figure, barely visible, always at the edge of the frame. The muddy footprints bothered me most. They led from my door to the street, but the mud was different from what was in my yard. Darker, with an odd smell that reminded me of wet concrete and something else I couldn't identify. I followed the trail as far as I could, but it disappeared at the sidewalk, like whoever left them had simply vanished. I went to the police. The officer was polite but dismissive. No signs of forced entry, no theft, no threats, just a person standing on my porch, which wasn't technically illegal. He suggested I install better lighting, maybe get a dog. He didn't watch the full footage. If he had, he would have seen what I saw in the final seconds before the figure disappeared. It turned toward the camera, not the dramatic turn you'd expect, but a slow, deliberate movement. The face remained hidden, but there was something familiar about the posture, the way the shoulders squared, something that made my chest tighten with recognition I couldn't quite place. I started staying up, watching the live feed. Nothing happened for days. Then one night I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped right at my door. I checked the camera feed. Nothing, just an empty porch under the dim streetlight. But the footsteps continued, circling the house, always just out of range of the cameras. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stop watching. The message disappeared before I could screenshot it. When I called the number back, it was disconnected. I checked my phone records the next day. No incoming text at that time. Nothing logged at all. I found my old wedding photos while searching for anything my ex might have left behind. In one picture, he's standing in the background at our reception, talking to someone I don't recognize. The stranger is tall, wearing a long coat despite the warm weather. The same coat, I realized, as the figure in my doorbell footage. The smell hit me when I opened the closet where we used to store winter clothes. That same odor from the muddy footprints. Wet concrete mixed with something organic and unpleasant. His old coat was still there, the one he claimed he'd lost. It was damp, stained with the same dark mud I'd found on my porch. I called him, he didn't answer. His voicemail had changed. Instead of his usual message, there was just silence, then a voice I didn't recognize saying his name. The voice was familiar though, like hearing someone speak who you've only seen in photographs. The police officer who had dismissed my case called unexpectedly. He wanted to know if I'd heard from my ex recently. There had been reports, he said, other women with similar stories, doorbell cameras, tall figures, disappearing evidence. He wouldn't give me details, but his tone had changed. This wasn't a prank anymore. I moved the camera to face the street instead of my door. The figure appeared again, but this time it was across the street, watching my house from between two parked cars. It stood there for hours, never moving, never leaving. When dawn came, it was gone, but there was something new in my mailbox. A key I'd never seen before, old, made of brass that had turned green with age. It looked like it might fit an old lock, maybe a basement door or a shed. I tried it on every lock in my house, nothing, but when I held it, my hands shook, not from fear, but from something deeper, like my body recognized what my mind couldn't accept. The basement door in my building has always been locked. The landlord said it was for storage, nothing important, but the key fit perfectly. The door opened onto stairs leading down into darkness that smelled of wet concrete and decay. At the bottom, boxes were stacked against the walls. Personal belongings, women's clothes, jewelry, things that belonged to people who were no longer around to claim them. I found a notebook wedged between two boxes. The handwriting was careful, methodical. It listed addresses, names, details about routines and habits. My address was there, along with notes about my work schedule, my ex-husband's departure, when I was most likely to be alone. The writing wasn't his, but it was familiar nonetheless. The final entry in the notebook was dated from last week. It simply said, "She's starting to understand, time to move on." Below that, in different handwriting that I recognized as my ex-husband's, were 3 words, "Let her go." I climbed back up those stairs, locked the door, and sat in my living room trying to process what I'd found. The doorbell camera was still recording, still watching the empty street, but I realized I was asking the wrong questions. It wasn't about who was watching me. It was about who had been helping them. My phone rang. My ex-husband's number appeared on the screen. When I answered, there was just breathing on the other end. Then his voice, quiet and strained. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought if I left, he'd follow me instead." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. I don't know if he was warning me or saying goodbye. I don't know if the figure will come back or if it's already found someone else to watch. All I know is that the muddy footprints are gone from my porch, but the smell remains. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear those slow, deliberate footsteps circling my house, just out of reach of the cameras. Crime 9, I was organizing clothes when I noticed the panel. It slid silently. Beyond it was a narrow tunnel descending into darkness. I held my breath, feeling cold air drift out. On the floor were old shoes, candy wrappers, drawings, nothing recent, but nothing covered in dust either. It looked used. I haven't stepped inside. I just closed the panel and pushed a chair in front of it. But each night I hear it slide open. I hear breathing. And in the morning, the chair is back where it was before. The drawings bothered me most, crayon sketches of stick figures holding hands, scattered across the concrete floor like fallen leaves. The paper felt damp when I touched it, not brittle like old paper should be. Someone had been bringing fresh supplies down there. Someone who knew about the tunnel. Someone who had been watching me organize my closet, waiting for me to find what they wanted me to find. I called the property manager the next morning. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The building was old, I explained. There might be structural issues. Could someone come take a look? She seemed confused when I mentioned the hidden panel. According to her records, my unit was a standard 1-bedroom. No architectural anomalies, no additional storage spaces, but she agreed to send someone over. The maintenance worker was a quiet man with calloused hands and tired eyes. He examined the closet with the methodical attention of someone who had seen enough strange things to stop being surprised. When he found the panel, he didn't react the way I expected. No shock, no curiosity, just a slow nod, like he was confirming something he already knew. He told me every unit in the building had these spaces. Original construction from decades ago, designed as emergency exits during the Cold War. Most residents never discovered them. The ones who did usually asked to have them sealed, but sealing them was expensive and the property management company had stopped offering that service. I asked him how many people knew about the tunnels. He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "More than you'd think," he said, "less than you'd hope." That night I didn't push the chair against the panel. I wanted to see what would happen. I pretended to sleep, lying in bed with my eyes closed but my mind racing. The sound came just after midnight, not the scraping of the panel sliding open, but something else. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving through my closet. I opened my eyes and saw a shadow pass by my bedroom door. Small, child-sized, it paused there and I could feel eyes watching me in the darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to breathe slowly, evenly, to maintain the illusion of sleep. The shadow moved away. I heard the refrigerator door open, the soft pop of a soda can, the rustle of a snack bag. Then the footsteps returned, passing my door again. The panel slid closed with its silent, practiced ease. In the morning, I found the evidence. A half-empty bag of chips on my kitchen counter, a can of soda in my trash, still cold, crumbs on my floor that hadn't been there before. Someone was living in my walls, using my home as their personal pantry. I started leaving food out intentionally. Crackers, fruit, bottles of water, they always disappeared by morning. I began buying extra groceries, telling myself I was being practical. But deep down, I knew I was feeding someone small, someone who drew pictures and left them scattered like breadcrumbs in a concrete maze. The property manager grew irritated when I called again. She insisted there was nothing unusual about my unit. When I mentioned the missing food, she suggested I might be sleepwalking. When I described the drawings, she recommended I speak with a therapist. Her tone carried the patience of someone humoring a difficult tenant. But I knew what I was experiencing was real. The proof was in my grocery bills, in the empty containers I found each morning, in the way my closet smelled different now, like someone else's shampoo, like fear. I decided to install a camera, a small device I positioned to monitor the closet entrance. The footage would either validate my sanity or force me to confront an uncomfortable truth about my mental state. Either way, I needed to know. The first few nights showed nothing unusual, just my own restless movements, checking and rechecking the panel. But on the fourth night, the camera captured something that made my blood freeze. A child emerged from the tunnel. A girl, maybe 8 or 9, with tangled hair and clothes that were too small for her growing frame. She moved through my apartment with the familiarity of someone who had been doing this for a long time. She knew which floorboards creaked. She knew where I kept the good snacks. She knew my schedule better than I did. But it was her face that haunted me. Not the face of someone lost or scared, but someone who had adapted. Someone who had learned to survive in the spaces between walls, in the forgotten corners of buildings, in the blind spots of other people's lives. I watched her eat my cereal directly from the box, standing in my kitchen like she owned the place. She looked directly at the camera once, and I saw something that made my stomach turn. Recognition. She knew I was watching. She had always known. The next morning, I found a note on my counter, written in crayon on the back of a grocery receipt. The handwriting was careful, practiced. "Thank you for the food. I won't hurt you. I just need a place to be safe." I stared at that note for a long time. The paper trembled in my hands as questions flooded my mind. How long had she been living in the walls? Where did she come from? Why wasn't she in school, with a family, in a real home? I tried calling the authorities, but explaining the situation felt impossible. A child living in my walls sounded like the delusion of someone who had been alone too long. The operator transferred me between departments, each person more skeptical than the last. Finally, I hung up, frustrated and more isolated than before. The social worker I eventually reached was kind but overwhelmed. She explained that without concrete evidence of abuse or neglect, and without being able to locate the child, there was little she could do. The system was designed to help children who were visible, documented, enrolled in schools, and living at verified addresses. It had no framework for children who existed in the margins. I started leaving longer notes with the food, questions about her safety, her needs, her story. She responded sometimes, but her answers were careful, evasive. She had learned not to trust adults with too much information. She had learned that being invisible was safer than being seen. Weeks passed, I grew accustomed to my nocturnal visitor, to the routine of buying extra groceries, to the strange comfort of knowing someone needed what I could provide. But I also grew more troubled by the implications. This child was surviving but not thriving. She was existing in a space that society had forgotten, dependent on the kindness of strangers who might not always be kind. The truth that emerged was more complex than I had imagined. Through patient conversation and careful observation, I learned that she wasn't the only one. The tunnel system connected multiple buildings, creating a hidden network where those who couldn't or wouldn't exist in the official world found ways to survive. Some were children who had aged out of foster care. Others were people fleeing situations they couldn't escape through legal means. They had created their own community in the spaces between legitimate society. But communities in the shadows are fragile things. They depend on secrecy, on the willingness of others to look the other way, on the ability to remain invisible to those who might not understand. My discovery had introduced an element of uncertainty into their world. The girls stopped coming, the panel remained closed, the chair I placed in front of it was never moved. My groceries lasted longer than they should have. The silence in my closet felt heavier than the breathing had. I don't know if she found another safe space or if my questions scared her away. I don't know if she's still in the building or if she's moved on to another network of hidden places. I don't know if I helped her or if I destroyed the only stability she had. What I do know is that the drawings are still there, scattered across the concrete floor of a tunnel I can't bring myself to enter. Evidence of a childhood lived in the margins, of a life that existed in the spaces most people never think to look. I kept the camera running, but it shows only empty rooms now. The panel hasn't opened since that last night, but sometimes when I'm lying in bed, I think I hear breathing in the walls. Not the labored breathing of someone hiding, but the steady breathing of someone who has learned to sleep in small spaces, to find rest in the forgotten corners of the world. I still buy extra groceries, I still leave food out just in case. Because somewhere in this city, in buildings with hidden panels and forgotten tunnels, there are people living lives that don't officially exist. And maybe, if I'm patient enough, if I'm trustworthy enough, someone will need what I can offer. The chair stays away from the panel now. The tunnel remains accessible. I've learned that some doors should stay open, even when we're not sure who might walk through them, especially then. Story 10. The dwelling had stood silent and still for what felt like an eternity. Whispers in the neighborhood spoke of its haunting past, of a young woman who vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that no one dared to fill. When the new occupants crossed the threshold, a sense of unease lingered in the air like a forgotten melody. The bedroom door, sealed shut from within, guarded its secrets with an ironclad silence. With a creak and a groan, the door relented, revealing a chamber frozen in time. The atmosphere was thick with neglect, dust dancing in the dim light, a spectral waltz of memories long faded. Everything appeared undisturbed, the bed neatly made, the mirror polished to perfection. But a solitary candle, now a mere shell of wax, stood as a sentinel of the past, its tears frozen in time. A notebook lay open on the desk, its pages a tapestry of words penned by a ghost. Detective Morgan, a shadow in the dim room, sifted through the journal while forensic whispers danced around him, seeking answers in the silence. Elise Winters, her name a whisper on the wind, spoke through the ink-stained pages, her voice a melody of mystery and foreboding. I know he's watching me tonight, her final entry echoed through the stillness. The words, etched with urgency, painted a portrait of fear and defiance. The truth, long buried beneath layers of deceit, was now laid bare for those who dared to listen. As the investigation unfolded, a tale of deception and betrayal unfurled like a fragile blossom in the moonlight. Elise, a paralegal entangled in a web of corporate intrigue, had stumbled upon secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. Her meticulous nature, a shield against the darkness closing in, had led her down a path fraught with danger. The room, a stage for a drama unseen, held no answers in its silent embrace. But beneath the surface, hidden from prying eyes, lay a key to unlock the mysteries that shrouded Elise's fate. A flash drive, a key to a vault of secrets, whispered of a truth waiting to be unveiled. The shadows whispered of a pact forged in shadows, of voices raised in a dance of deception. The truth, a fragile thread woven through a tapestry of lies, threatened to unravel the web of deceit that ensnared the guilty. In the heart of the night, justice stirred from its slumber, casting a light upon the darkness that sought to consume it. The truth, a beacon in the storm, guided the wayward souls towards redemption and retribution. As the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a figure emerged from the shadows, a phantom of guilt and remorse. Vincent Harriman, a puppeteer of fate, stood at the crossroads of destiny, his sins laid bare for all to see. The room, a silent witness to a tragedy untold, whispered of a soul lost but never forgotten. Elise's legacy, a testament to her unwavering resolve, echoed through the empty halls, a reminder of a life cut short but never extinguished. The house, a relic of the past, stood as a monument to the power of truth and justice. Its walls, once cloaked in shadows, now bore witness to the light of a new dawn, where secrets could no longer hide and justice reigned supreme. And so the house stood silent once more, its secrets laid bare to the world. The whispers of the past faded into the night, a requiem for the lost souls who once dwelled within its walls. And in the stillness of the night, a single candle flickered in the darkness, a beacon of hope for those who sought the truth in the shadows. Story 11, The Enigmatic Coffee Shop. The cafe had become his sanctuary for countless years, his spot by the window, his black coffee, his solitude. The barista recognized his face, yet no one knew his true identity. Then one fateful day, he failed to materialize. When authorities investigated his customary seat, they stumbled upon a forgotten wallet. Inside lay a driver's license with a face, but without a name or address, just an eerie void where his identity should have resided. Detective Sarah Mercer leaned in, her fingertips grazing the frigid metal table as she replayed the security footage. The enigmatic figure, now labeled John Doe in official records, appeared unassuming on screen. Of average build with unremarkable features, clad in a navy coat and toting a weathered leather bag, his very normalcy made his disappearance all the more chilling. "Play it again," Mercer directed the tech specialist. The footage unveiled John entering the cafe during the bustling morning hours. He ordered his customary black coffee, devoid of sugar, and settled at the secluded corner table, partially obscured by lush greenery. There he sat, extracted a notebook from his bag, and began to write. Occasionally, he would sip his coffee and gaze out the window. Then the pivotal moment arrived. He placed his wallet on the table, rose, and strolled down the hallway toward the restroom. Yet he never re-emerged. He never departed through any exit. He simply evaporated into the ether. "Check the restroom footage," Mercer instructed. "That's the bizarre part," the specialist responded. "He never set foot in any restroom. We've scoured every camera angle. It's as though he evaporated into thin air." Back at the precinct, Mercer scattered the wallet's contents across her desk. The driver's license photo matched the mystery man, but where personal details should have been, there were only vacant spaces. The credit cards bore no names, only strings of 16 digits that led to non-existent accounts when traced through the system. Neatly arranged cash of various denominations. A receipt from the CAF dated 3 days prior. And a solitary business card devoid of text on both sides, save for a phone number printed in faint gray ink. When Mercer dialed the number, the call connected, yet silence greeted her. Faint sounds of rustling paper, perhaps pages being turned, lingered in the background. After 30 seconds, the line went dead. The barista who had served John for years could offer scant insight. He seldom spoke, always courteous though, generous with tips. I think he had an accent, but his voice was so hushed it was hard to discern. Did he ever engage with anyone here, hold conversations? Mercer inquired. Never, always solitary, always engrossed in that notebook. The notebook rested on the table beside the forsaken wallet, its pages adorned with rows of what seemed to be code or encrypted text. Cryptographers from the department grappled to decipher it. Some pages featured sketches, blueprints of edifices that bore no resemblance to any known structures in the vicinity. Mercer dispatched officers to canvass the neighborhood with John Doe's photographs. No one recognized him. No missing persons reports aligned with his description. His fingerprints eluded all databases. It was as if he existed solely within the confines of that CAF. Throughout her inquiries, Mercer discerned an anomaly in the security footage. Each morning John entered the CAF, the camera's timestamp flickered briefly. The tech specialist dismissed it as a technical glitch, but Mercer harbored doubts. She revisited the CAF and seated herself at his table. From this vantage point, she could surveil both the entrance and the corridor leading to the restrooms. Suspended between them hung an antique mirror, its frame intricately etched with symbols akin to those in John's notebook. Upon the CAF owner's arrival, Mercer interrogated him about the mirror. That thing, it predates my tenure here, came with the building. Weighty as sin requires 2 men to shift it. Has it ever been relocated for cleaning or redecoration? Never in my time. Why do you ask? Mercer approached the mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. The glass bore a subtle distortion, imparting an illusion of depth to the reflection. She extended her hand to the glass, anticipating its chill, yet encountering an anomalous warmth. The forensics team descended to scrutinize the mirror. Upon detaching it from the wall, they stumbled upon a diminutive hollow cavity behind it. Nestled within were a stack of identical wallets, each enfolding a driver's license with the same visage but bereft of personal data. Adjacent lay a leather-bound journal teeming with entries spanning decades, inscribed in the same hand as the notebook abandoned on the table. The terminal entry read, "The experiment must cease. They draw near." The aperture is closing. Investigators uncovered fingerprints throughout the concealed space, all matching John Doe. Carbon dating of the earliest wallet hinted it was roughly 50 years old, yet the image depicted the identical unblemished countenance. The journal entries delineated what seemed to be trials in temporal displacement and identity transference. Mentions of returning through and aperture points peppered the pages. One passage arrested Mercer's attention. The CAF serves as a nexus, an intersection where realities converge. The mirror serves as the portal. When alignment transpires, transit becomes viable. As the probe deepened, peculiar occurrences besieged the CAF environs. Patrons recounted witnessing their reflections move autonomously in the window panes. Several professed to glimpsing John Doe seated at his habitual table, though surveillance cameras manifested no presence. The breakthrough in the enigma arrived when an elderly woman reached out to the police station regarding the investigation. She identified herself as Margaret Keller, a former physicist embroiled in classified government endeavors. She recognized John Doe from the media accounts. His name was Daniel Weston, she elucidated, an astute theoretical physicist who vanished while engrossed in an experimental venture centered on quantum mirror surfaces that purportedly facilitated material passage betwixt parallel realities. Keller tendered documents illustrating Weston's presumed demise following a laboratory mishap. The date of his disappearance coincided with the earliest entry in the journal unearthed behind the mirror. He posited that our reality is but one of myriad coexisting, Keller expounded. He postulated that certain sites served as feeble junctures between these realities' locales where one could potentially traverse. Mercer revisited the caf armed with this newfound knowledge. She ascertained that the edifice stood atop land formerly housing the research facility where Weston twalled. The caf had been erected directly atop the laboratory where he vanished. The saga peaked when Mercer, poring over security footage solo late one night, discerned a detail eluding previous scrutiny. In the backdrop, mirrored in the mirror, John Doe Daniel Weston could be perceived observing himself seated at the table. Two iterations of the same man coexisting concurrently. Rushing to the caf to reinspect the mirror, Mercer discovered it fractured upon the floor. Amidst the shards lay a parting missive inscribed in the familiar script, "The experiment is concluded. The aperture is sealed, do not venture forth." The conundrum of the phantom man lingers officially unsolved. The caf shuttered not long after the investigation, its edifice eventually razed. Daniel Weston's remains were never unearthed. His notebooks and journals vanished from the evidence chamber under inscrutable circumstances. Detective Mercer resigned from the force shortly thereafter. Residents occasionally glimpse her perched on her veranda, engrossed in frenzied writing within a notebook akin to Weston's. Adorning her wall hangs a fragment of an antique mirror, its visage occasionally seeming to undulate when unobserved. Story 12. In the stillness of the night, where shadows dance and secrets linger, there stood an apartment shrouded in mystery. It had sat empty, a silent witness to time passing by, until the arrival of new tenants brought with it a sense of unease. Dust settled like whispers, and forgotten furniture held memories untold. Yet there was one door that refused to yield to their curiosity, a closet, locked tight from within. When the landlord finally mustered the courage to force the stubborn door open, the tenants braced themselves for mundane discoveries. But what awaited them was far from ordinary. The walls bore witness to a silent struggle, etched with deep, uneven scratches that spoke of desperation and confinement. And in the shadowed corner, an old flip phone lay dormant, its screen illuminated by a single unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for the enigmatic, felt a chill creep up her spine as she surveyed the scene. It wasn't the absence of blood or overt violence that unsettled her, but the silent plea conveyed by those haunting scratch marks a tale of captivity and fear. "We need forensics here immediately," she instructed her partner, Officer Reed, who diligently documented the eerie tableau before them, "and gather all records of the previous tenants." The message on the forgotten phone simply whispered, "I know what you did." The landlord, a man with nervous eyes and trembling hands, stammered about the previous tenant, a quiet young woman named Emma Caldwell, who had vanished without a trace, leaving rent unpaid. "She kept to herself, caused no trouble," he muttered, his gaze skirting away from the ominous closet. Forensics unraveled a tangled web of deceit within the scratches on the wall's blood samples intertwined with a haunting narrative. Most belonged to Emma, the missing tenant, but two distinct DNA profiles emerged. One remained a mystery, while the other belonged to a man who had supposedly met his end in a tragic accident years prior. Shaw's brow furrowed in contemplation as she pored over the perplexing evidence. Emma's apartment whispered of interrupted routines, a life abruptly halted, leaving behind unanswered questions and unspoken fears. As the investigation delved deeper, a sinister pattern emerged. Emma's abrupt disappearance coincided with the presence of an unknown caller, a shadowy figure lurking on the fringes of her life, shrouded in mystery. Surveillance footage unveiled a cryptic figure, a man in a baseball cap, trailing Emma's steps with calculated precision. And when forensics unveiled fingerprints belonging to a man long declared dead, the pieces of the puzzle began to align. "He faked his death," Shaw murmured, her mind racing to connect the dots. But why Emma? What ties her to this elaborate charade? The threads of the investigation wove a tapestry of darkness and deceit, leading to a remote property owned by the enigmatic Derek Mercer, a man whose very existence seemed to blur the lines between reality and nightmare. Behind the heavy doors of Mercer's domain, a chilling discovery awaited a living ghost from the past, Lynette Porter, imprisoned in shadows reminiscent of Emma's own confinement. "He made me watch," Lynette's voice trembled with suppressed horror, unveiling a tale of manipulation and terror. "He wanted me to know the price of defiance." Journals chronicling Mercer's descent into madness, photographs capturing the essence of his victims, and video recordings of unspeakable cruelty painted a portrait of a man consumed by a thirst for control and suffering. As the manhunt for Mercer intensified, a grim profile emerged, a predator who reveled not in death, but in the slow erosion of hope and spirit, confined within walls of his own making. When Mercer was finally apprehended, his demeanor remained eerily composed, his words laced with a chilling clarity that sent shivers down the spines of all who listened. During the trial, the truth unfurled like a dark tapestry. Emma's fate sealed within the confines of that closet, her final message a silent plea for justice in a world gone awry. The jury's verdict echoed through the courtroom, sealing Mercer's fate with a life sentence devoid of redemption. And as he gazed upon his sentence with a cryptic smile, the world outside shuddered at the depths of his depravity. In a final act of defiance, Lynette Porter faced her captor, her voice ringing clear and resolute. "While you dwell in darkness, I shall embrace the light." And thus, as the wheels of justice turned and shadows dispersed, Detective Shaw kept a memento from that fateful apartment, a reminder of the unseen battles fought in the shadows, where survival was a whispered prayer against the encroaching night. Story 13. In the quiet of the night, a subtle flicker danced across the baby monitor screen, a fleeting anomaly that caught the mother's attention. Initially brushed off as mere interference, the tranquility was shattered when a crackling static filled the room, accompanied by a soft, eerie whisper urging, "SHHH, go back to sleep." A chill ran down her spine as her heart raced with dread. Ignoring her trembling hands, she hurried to her son's room, each step echoing in the silent house. But as she reached his crib, her worst fear materialized. Her baby, Samuel, was gone. Panic surged through her as she scanned the room, finding everything in its place except for a lone stuffed rabbit, its unblinking eyes fixed on her, as if knowing secrets it couldn't speak. Rebecca's scream pierced the night, a raw, primal sound that carried her terror to the waiting ears of concerned neighbors. Their quick call brought help, but even the arrival of authorities couldn't soothe the mother's shattered soul. Clutching the silent witness of the stuffed rabbit, she rocked on the nursery floor, lost in a nightmare made real. The investigation that followed was fraught with confusion and unanswered questions. No forced entry marks marred the home, and security measures showed no signs of tampering. The baby monitor footage offered only a glimpse of the inexplicable voice that had whispered into the darkness. Suspicions turned to Rebecca, her strained marriage and past struggles with postpartum depression casting shadows of doubt. Yet a breakthrough emerged in the form of microscopic fibers found on the nursery windowsill. These tiny threads told a tale of an intruder skilled in the art of climbing, accessing the room from the outside world. The focus shifted, revealing a dark figure moving in the shadows, leaving behind a trace of specialized equipment and a chilling mystery. Daniel, the absent husband, returned to a storm of accusations and revelations. His hands bore the marks of a hidden hobby, his alibis unraveling under scrutiny. Clues hidden in financial records and phone logs painted a damning picture, leading investigators down a twisted path of deceit and betrayal. The baby monitor, once a tool of comfort, now held the key to a sinister plot. Digital forensics unveiled a web of deception, exposing a connection to a woman named Elaine, a ghost from Daniel's past seeking solace in twisted fantasies. Her obsession with reclaiming what she had lost led to a night of terror that shattered lives. Samuel, found alive but unknowing, became a symbol of resilience in the face of darkness. As the truth unfolded in a courtroom hushed with disbelief, the echoes of that whispered voice reverberated through the minds of all who listened. Daniel's cough, a damning sound in the background of the audio, sealed his fate alongside Elaine's. Justice was served, but scars remained, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the depths of human depravity. Rebecca and Samuel sought solace in a new beginning, far from the shadows of the past. The stuffed rabbit, a silent witness to their ordeal, found a new home in a box, its glassy eyes a haunting reminder of a night when reality blurred with nightmare. The baby monitor, a sentinel of truth, stood as a sentinel of a dark chapter closed but never forgot. In its static whispers lay a tale of resilience and redemption, a testament to the enduring power of a mother's love. Story 14, Renovations always uncover hidden stories. Old newspapers, broken trinkets, forgotten photographs. But when Sarah and Michael lifted the floorboards in their Victorian-era home, they found a letter tucked neatly underneath. The paper was fragile, the ink faded, but the message bore a clear warning: don't trust the one who knocked. Before they could react, 3 sharp raps pierced the silence of the empty house, sending shivers down their spines. Intrigued by the mysterious discovery, Detective Alina Reed arrived with her partner to investigate further. The couple had unwittingly disturbed the secrets of the past when they unearthed the chilling message. Reed, with her seasoned hands, delicately retrieved the note, already tainted by the touch of Sarah and Michael. As the couple recounted the eerie knocking sound, genuine fear reflected in their eyes. Background checks revealed nothing amiss about the young couple. The house, however, held a complex history. Previously owned by the reclusive Hargrove family, the property stood silent for years after the passing of its last inhabitant, Margaret Hargrove. A widowed woman with no enemies, her death deemed natural, yet an unsettling presence lingered. The note, dated 2 decades prior, hinted at fear and urgency in the handwriting, seemingly penned by Margaret herself. Reed delved deeper, uncovering the troubled past of Franklin and Margaret Hargrove. Franklin, a respected teacher turned paranoid recluse, harbored dark secrets within the walls of their home. A former student's recollection hinted at Franklin's descent into paranoia, fueled by a mysterious collector who haunted their lives with 3 ominous knocks. Margaret's sister, in a nursing home, revealed the truth behind the knocking: Franklin's unpaid gambling debts to the elusive collector, Victor Mercer. Franklin's desperate act to protect his wife led to a hidden crime buried beneath the house for years. Forensic analysis and Margaret's diaries unveiled a chilling tale of betrayal and fear. Mercer's remains, discovered beneath the foundation, closed the chapter on a long-standing mystery. Margaret's silent suffering, haunted by the echoes of 3 knocks, painted a picture of a life overshadowed by secrets. The house, tainted by its past, stood abandoned as Sarah and Michael chose to part ways with its ominous history. Local whispers spoke of ghostly knocks in the stillness of the night, a reminder of the darkness that once dwelled within. The note, preserved in evidence, bore a cryptic message: "Don't trust the one who knocked." Detective Reed closed the case, acknowledging that some mysteries defy resolution, leaving questions lingering in the shadows of the past. Story 15. In the dimming light of the closing costume shop, the air was heavy with the scent of old fabric and forgotten dreams. The shelves stood bare, remnants of whimsical disguises now scattered like memories left behind. Among the remnants, a woman's hand reached out, drawn to a lone mask resting upon a dusty shelf. Its features, delicate yet unsettlingly lifelike, seemed to watch her with unseen eyes. The cashier's voice broke the silence as she placed it on the counter, a faint tremor in his tone as he muttered, "That's not ours." Bewildered, she turned the mask in her hands, searching for a tag that wasn't there. With a nonchalant shrug, she decided to take it home, unaware of the shadows that would soon dance within her own walls. That night, a soft sound stirred her from slumber, a whisper of fabric shifting in the darkness. Her eyes met the gaze of the mask, no longer resting where she had left it, but now perched upon her nightstand, its expression fixed upon her like a silent sentinel. The woman, known as Catherine Reed, was discovered by a concerned neighbor the following morning. The open door beckoned in the morning light, a stark contrast to the somber stillness within. As the neighbor's footsteps echoed through the quiet house, a scene unfolded that would etch itself into the minds of those who sought answers. Detective Morgan arrived, her presence a beacon of authority amidst the unsettling tableau. The room hummed with whispered conversations as forensics meticulously captured the details that whispered of a mystery waiting to be unraveled. A single drawer left ajar, a lipstick-stained glass upon the nightstand, mundane yet pregnant with unspoken questions, much like the lifeless figure that lay before them. The medical examiner's somber assessment only deepened the enigma shrouding Catherine's demise. The cause of death eluded them, leaving only a frozen mask of terror upon her features as a haunting testament to the unknown. The detective, her gaze lingering upon the scene, whispered words that carried a weight of unease. Something scared her to death. Catherine's life, once defined by the scrutiny of art authenticity, now became a canvas for speculation and dread. Her keen eye for detail, once a prized skill, now cast a shadow of suspicion upon her own fate. As the investigation unfolded, a trail of breadcrumbs led to the peculiar mask that had found its way into her possession. Security footage from the forsaken costume shop revealed a moment of confusion, a glimpse of the cashier's perplexed expression as he denied any knowledge of the mask's origin. The owner's cryptic words hinted at a darker narrative, one woven with threads of mystery and misfortune. The detective's footsteps echoed through the empty shop, each creak of the floorboards a ghostly whisper of secrets long buried. A breakthrough emerged from the depths of forensic analysis, microscopic fibers embedded in Catherine's fingertips offering a tantalizing clue. The revelation of these strange fibers, a blend of human hair and enigmatic organic matter, painted a chilling picture of the unknown forces at play. Each thread woven into a tapestry of past tragedies, each victim linked by a common thread of inexplicable terror. The retired detective's revelation, shared in a dimly lit room heavy with the weight of untold truths, unveiled a sinister connection that spanned generations. Ancient symbols hidden within the mask spoke of a ritual as old as time itself, a ritual that demanded a toll measured in fear and death. But it was Catherine's own words, penned in a journal hidden away in her apartment, that offered a glimpse into the darkness that had claimed her. Her frantic scribblings revealed a tale of a malevolent entity, a mask that moved of its own accord, a harbinger of doom that sought new vessels to inhabit. As the investigation delved deeper, the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. Surveillance footage captured a haunting figure leaving Catherine's home, a specter clad in the mask of her demise, moving with an unnatural grace that defied explanation. The hunt for the missing mask led to dead ends and shadows, a trail gone cold as the night that cloaked its elusive presence. And so the mystery of Catherine Reed's untimely end remained a riddle unsolved, a tale whispered in the halls of law enforcement as a cautionary tale of the unknown. The mask, a malevolent force bound by ancient whispers, waited in the shadows for its next unwitting victim, a vessel to carry its dark purpose forward. The detective, keeper of secrets too strange for official records, felt the weight of the mask's legacy in the stillness of the night. As she traced the lines of Catherine's journal, a shiver of unease danced along her spine, a reminder that some truths were better left undisturbed. And so she closed the drawer upon the journal, locking away the echoes of a darkness that lingered just beyond the veil of sleep. For out there in the quiet spaces where shadows dwell, the mask bided its time, a silent predator hungering for the souls that dared to peer into its empty gaze. And when it found its next host, the cycle would begin anew, a dance of fear and death that whispered of a legacy older than time itself. The mask awaited, patient and hungry, for the moment when another would awaken to the soft sound of movement in the dark, to find themselves ensnared in its chilling embrace. Story 16, the aged envelope exuded a sense of history, its faded edges hinting at a bygone era, yet the stamp upon it was fresh, as if it had just embarked on its journey through time. With a delicate touch, the detective unfolded the envelope, revealing a single sheet of paper within. The message, hastily typed in an uneven script, bore the weight of confession. "I am sorry for what I did." As the detective read the words, a subtle dampness clung to the paper, carrying with it a faint scent of iron. It was only upon closer inspection that the reddish smear along the bottom edge caught their attention, a chilling reminder of the darkness that stained these words. Carefully, Detective Sarah Morgan secured the letter in an evidence bag, her gloved hands moving with practiced precision. The forensics team's analysis confirmed the detective's suspicions. The reddish stain was indeed human blood, a match to the DNA from an unsolved homicide case that had lingered like a ghost within the department for years. The victim, a young journalist named Rebecca Warren, had been discovered in her apartment, a tragic tableau of violence etched in stab wounds. Her missing laptop and scattered notes hinted at a story left untold, a narrative interrupted by the cruel hand of fate. The arrival of the letter, simply addressed to the Homicide Division, breathed new life into a case long thought cold. The paper and envelope yielded few clues, save for faint smudges hinting at gloved hands that had touched them. But the postmark offered a glimmer of hope, a thread to follow in the labyrinth of secrets. Gathering her team in the dimly lit briefing room, Detective Morgan set the letter at the heart of their investigation board, a silent plea for justice amidst a sea of unanswered questions. "This changes everything," she murmured, her voice a soothing melody in the hushed space. "Our killer carries the burden of remorse." Detective James Chen, her steadfast partner, offered a counterpoint to her optimism. Or perhaps, he mused, this is but a ruse, a theatrical display meant to toy with our perceptions. The truth lay shrouded in shadows, waiting to be unveiled. As the investigation unfurled like a delicate dance, the typewriter's unique patterns whispered of a bygone era, a relic of time's passage. The search led them down winding paths, revisiting Rebecca's life and the threads of conspiracy she had dared to unravel. A tale of a wealthy family, a patriarch's demise, and siblings entangled in a web of deceit emerged from the shadows. Interviews with Rebecca's loved ones revealed hidden truths, subtle shifts in demeanor that spoke volumes in the silence of their confessions. Michael Barnes, once a grieving boyfriend, now stood at the nexus of their inquiries, his eyes betraying a flicker of guilt amidst the shadows. With the arrival of a second letter, the veil of mystery began to lift, revealing darker truths lurking beneath polished facades. She knew too much, the message confessed, weaving a tapestry of betrayal and whispered secrets that echoed through the corridors of power. The journey led them to the mansion of the deceased patriarch, where shadows danced in the flickering light, casting doubt upon those who dwelled within. Richard, the eldest son, stood at the center of their suspicions, his collection of antiques hiding a darker truth within their polished exteriors. A breakthrough came with the discovery of microscopic fibers on the envelopes, leading them to Alina, the youngest daughter, and the revelation of a sinister pact woven in shadows. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, painting a portrait of greed and desperation that drove men to unspeakable acts. Bank records whispered of transactions shrouded in secrecy, a web of deceit spun by those who sought to silence the truth. The recording, a silent witness to treachery, echoed through the courtroom, sealing the fates of those who had danced upon the edge of darkness. In the end, as justice cast its long shadow over the guilty, Detective Morgan stood before Rebecca's parents, offering solace in the face of loss. The blood-stained letters, now silent relics of a tragedy long past, whispered of a truth that could not be buried beneath layers of deceit. The case of Rebecca Warren faded into memory, a cautionary tale of the shadows that lurk within the human heart. And in the quiet of the night, as the world slumbered in peaceful repose, the echoes of a typewriter's confession lingered, a reminder that even the darkest secrets cannot escape the light of truth. Story 17, The Enigmatic Manor. The new residents brushed off the oddity of the crackling intercom system in their new home, an ancient relic rewired but forgotten. Late one night, the husband, driven by curiosity, pressed the button. A mysterious whisper crackled through the speaker. "Why did you come back?" Startled, he recoiled, hands trembling. His wife, standing behind him, softly declared, "I never said that." Nestled amidst ancient oak trees, the Victorian manor exuded an aura of mystery, its weathered facade concealing a modern interior. Daniel and Meredith Parker, drawn to history, acquired the property at a surprisingly modest price, despite the real estate agent's uneasy demeanor during the showing. The vintage intercom system, connecting all rooms, captivated the couple with a love for the past. Detective Sarah Reeves arrived at the manor, the gravel crunching beneath her unmarked vehicle's tires. The call indicated a possible break-in, but the dispatcher's tone hinted at a deeper narrative. Daniel Parker, his complexion pale in the dim light, welcomed her at the door. "It all began with the intercom," he recounted, leading Detective Reeves through the grand foyer. First static, then whispers, evolving into complete sentences. My wife thought I was imagining it until she heard it too. In the living room, Meredith sat stiffly on an antique sofa, gripping a mug that remained untouched. "We made a discovery behind the wall," she disclosed abruptly. Daniel wanted to expand the pantry, and when he tore down the drywall, her voice faltered. Hidden behind the wall, wrapped in decaying plastic, lay a small leather-bound journal. Detective Reeves' gloved hands carefully handling the brittle pages revealed the elegant yet frenzied script of Alina, the former owner. The entries chronicled her escalating suspicions of her husband Vincent's malevolent intentions. "The last entry dates back 30 years, Daniel explained. After that, silence. The previous owners mentioned buying it from an elderly man who relocated to a retirement community. Investigation unearthed the ownership of Vincent and Alina Blackwood, with records indicating Vincent sold the house post Alina's unexplained departure. Further exploration exposed anomalies beneath the shed's concrete foundation through ground-penetrating radar. As investigators breached the aged concrete, the truth emerged: human remains. Forensic analysis confirmed the woman in her 40s suffered fatal blunt force trauma to the skull. A gold wedding band with the inscription, "To Alina, my eternal love," was discovered among the remains. Vincent Blackwood, now aged and residing in a care facility, comprehended the charges against him. His chilling response to the evidence left even Detective Reeves unnerved. "She wouldn't cease her chatter," Vincent calmly recounted. "Through that cursed intercom, always monitoring me, questioning me. I disconnected it, but she rewired it herself, wanting to reach me incessantly." His vacant gaze lifted. "I only craved silence." In his confession, Vincent revealed his meticulous orchestration of Alina's fabricated departure, including forged postcards from diverse locations. He dwelled in the house for years, treading daily over the concrete concealing his wife's remains. At trial, Vincent pleaded guilty to murder. The judge noted the calculated nature of the crime and the decades-long deceit that ensued. Daniel and Meredith relinquished the property, unable to endure its somber past. Before departing, they honored Alina with a garden memorial, the site now serene following the investigation. Subsequent owners removed the intercom system during renovations, workers recounting eerie static and whispers attributed to their tool's interference. Detective Reeves revisited the Blackwood case file before its archival. Closing the folder, she pondered how the house had unveiled its enigma across time. Justice finally reached Vincent Blackwood, courtesy of Alina's persistent voice. Local law enforcement dubbed the case "the house that answered back." Occasionally, Detective Reeves would pass the manor on her way home, slowing down, window cracked open, listening for whispers carried on the breeze. Story 18. In the quiet of the night, a mysterious package arrived in the mail, wrapped in a plain envelope devoid of any sender's address. Within it lay a single brass key, its once shiny surface now weathered by time's touch. The homeowner, Sarah Miller, felt a strange sense of recognition upon seeing it, though she couldn't place where it came from. With a curious heart, Sarah tried the key in every lock she owned, but none yielded to its touch. It was a key that did not belong to her, yet its presence stirred something unsettling within her. As she placed it gently on the coffee table, a grand old grandfather clock in the hallway let out a single, hollow chime, a sound that hadn't graced the home in years, for the clock had long been silent and still. Perplexed and unnerved, Sarah took the matter to the authorities, reporting the strange incident that had unfolded in her home. What started as a simple tale of an enigmatic key soon unfurled into a chilling criminal investigation that would send shivers through the serene suburban neighborhood. The responding officer, initially dismissive of Sarah's concerns, saw the key as a mere mistake in the mail. But Sarah's intuition whispered otherwise, urging her to push for further inquiry. Reluctantly, the officer accepted the key as evidence, placing it in a small bag that would soon become the focal point of a sprawling investigation. The case landed on the desk of Detective Robert Harmon, a seasoned investigator with a knack for unraveling cases that hid dark secrets beneath their innocuous beginnings. The brass key sat before him, unassuming yet radiating an unsettling aura that set his instincts on edge. Delving into Sarah's background, the investigation revealed a woman with no criminal past, a retired teacher, widowed, with children living far away. Nothing in her records hinted at any wrongdoing. She appeared to be, just as she claimed, an innocent recipient of a cryptic gift. Forensic examinations yielded no fingerprints on the key except Sarah's own. The envelope bore no clues, save for a generic postmark from a distant distribution center. The key itself, a standard Schlage, showed signs of age and wear, hinting at a past shrouded in mystery. The breakthrough came unexpectedly when Detective Harmon decided to cross-reference the key's unique pattern with the department's database. A cold case from years past resurfaced, linking the key to a storage unit where horrors untold had been uncovered: blood-stained carpets, tools of cutting, and photographs of women whose fates had remained unknown. The original investigation had hit a dead end, lacking the evidence to bring the perpetrator to justice. Dusting off the old files, Harmon delved into the unsolved case, tracing the key's dark history back to a shadowy figure who had evaded capture for far too long. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a chilling realization dawned upon the investigators. The key was not just a random object sent in the mail, it was a sinister calling card, a link to a predator who had long lurked in the shadows of the unsuspecting neighborhood. The man behind the key, Harold Jenkins, had lived in close proximity to Sarah before disappearing without a trace. A substitute teacher with a penchant for secrecy, he had left behind a trail of unanswered questions and unspeakable deeds. The hunt for Jenkins intensified as investigators unearthed a hidden chamber beneath his mother's cabin, a chamber lined with shelves bearing rows of brass keys, each one a grim reminder of lives snuffed out in the darkness. Behind the cabin, a grim discovery awaited: the remains of victims long forgotten, their stories lost to the passage of time. As the excavation unfolded, the scope of Jenkins' atrocities became painfully clear, sending shockwaves through the community. Sarah, now gripped by fear and uncertainty, found herself at the center of a nightmare she could never have imagined. Her every move was shadowed by the specter of a man who had watched and waited, his sinister intentions shrouded in mystery. The manhunt for Jenkins spanned far and wide, with law enforcement agencies racing against time to prevent further tragedy. But as the net closed in, Jenkins chose to evade justice, taking his own life rather than face the consequences of his heinous deeds. In the aftermath, a journal was found, a macabre testament to Jenkins' twisted mind, detailing his crimes in chilling detail. In its final pages, a message addressed to Sarah laid bare the depths of his obsession, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had touched her life. The investigation uncovered a total of 32 victims, their stories finally brought to light after years of silence. Families found closure amidst the heartbreak, knowing the truth about their lost loved ones. As the community grappled with the aftermath of Jenkins' reign of terror, Sarah chose to leave her home behind, haunted by the knowledge of how close she had come to the abyss. The grandfather clock, once a silent witness to unspeakable horrors, stood as a reminder of the darkness that had brushed against her life. The case of Harold Jenkins, the enigmatic keymaster, remains a chilling example of how monsters can lurk in the most ordinary of places, hidden behind masks of normalcy. His legacy serves as a warning, a call to vigilance against the shadows that may lurk just beyond the light. And so, in the silence of the night, the brass keys rest in their evidence locker, each one a silent sentinel to the lives lost, and the horrors uncovered a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying truths lie hidden behind the facade of the familiar. Story 19. The vintage Polaroid held secrets within its faded hues, whispering forgotten tales of birthdays past. Amidst the smiles and flickering candles, a mysterious presence lurked in the background, unnoticed by those frozen in time. It was a man, a mere silhouette on the fringes of the captured celebrations, gradually drawing closer with each passing photo. Sarah Winters stumbled upon the box of memories while clearing out her late mother's attic, unaware of the chilling discoveries that awaited her. The simple label of memories belied the sinister truth hidden within. What should have brought solace turned into a descent into darkness as she unearthed the spectral figure haunting her childhood photographs. In the earliest snapshot, he was a mere shadow at the periphery, a silent observer during her 7th birthday party. With each subsequent image, he crept closer, a ghostly presence blending into the background. No one in the pictures seemed to acknowledge his existence, yet his presence was undeniable. Puzzled and unsettled, Sarah reached out to her father, seeking answers to the enigmatic figure that tainted their cherished memories. His initial denial gave way to a deep unease as he too recognized the stranger in the photos, a figure that should not have been there. Detective Marcus Reed became entwined in the mystery as Sarah laid out the haunting images before him. As rain tapped against the windows, casting a somber veil over the scene, the detective delved into the eerie progression of the unknown man through the captured moments of joy. His interest piqued. Reed could not dismiss the calculated movements of the figure lurking in the shadows. Despite exhaustive investigations and interviews with party attendees, the man remained a spectral enigma, a phantom intruder slipping through the cracks of memory. Facial recognition technology faltered, unable to pierce the veil of secrecy shrouding the mysterious figure. The breakthrough came with the aid of modern technology, revealing hidden details within the aged photographs. A scar, a ring, a glimpse of a face previously obscured all pointed towards a chilling truth. Dental records linked the spectral intruder to Robert Keller, a long-missing maintenance worker with a dark history of child abductions. As the pieces fell into place, a grim reality emerged. Keller had been present at the gatherings documented in the photos, his sinister presence masked by the facade of celebration. His connection to unsolved disappearances sent shivers down Sarah's spine, unraveling the carefully woven tapestry of her childhood. The excavation of Keller's past unearthed buried secrets, tangible remnants of lives forever altered by his malevolent presence. The closure brought by the discovery of remains near one of the vacation properties was bittersweet, offering answers tainted with sorrow. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by the damning evidence of the past, Sarah contemplated the chilling truth that had unraveled before her eyes. The shadow in the photographs had been a harbinger of darkness, a specter haunting their memories with unseen malice. As she placed the photos back in the box, each image a testament to the hidden evils that lingered beneath the surface of joyful occasions, Sarah understood that some threats moved unseen, their presence felt only in the shadows of captured moments, waiting to be revealed by those brave enough to uncover the truth. Story 20. In the worn-down apartment, peculiar sounds echoed through the walls, pipes groaning, floorboards whispering secrets with each creak. But the new resident, attuned to the unusual, sensed something more sinister lurking within the shadows of her home. The footsteps, a steady rhythm of purposeful intent, echoed from above, despite her living on the highest floor. One fateful night, a surge of courage guided her hand to tap the ceiling with a broomstick. The haunting sound halted abruptly, plunging the space into a heavy silence. Then, a single knock reverberated from within the confines of the ceiling itself. Sarah Coleman, the tenant, chose to keep the unnerving incident to herself, weaving a tale of settling structures or a wayward creature seeking refuge in the attic. Night after night, the methodical footsteps persisted, tracing enigmatic paths across the ceiling in the shroud of darkness. Sarah adapted, cranking up the volume of her television, donning headphones as she drifted into the realm of dreams, seeking solace from the relentless footfalls above. The enigmatic tale unfolded when Detective Morris stumbled upon the apartment during an investigation prompted by a maintenance worker's fortuitous discovery. During routine repairs, a hidden crawlspace revealed itself behind a section of drywall in the hallway adjacent to Sarah's dwelling. Illuminated by a flashlight's beam, a clandestine living space materialized forgotten remnants of the unknown dweller scattered about, a testament to a hidden existence. The cryptic findings led Detective Morris and his partner, Detective Rivera, down a bewildering path. The maintenance worker's trembling voice echoed warnings of a phantom presence. Someone's been living in the walls. Someone's been watching. Within the clandestine space, a notebook unveiled meticulous observations of Sarah Coleman's daily life, her routines, her visitors, her very essence scrutinized and documented. The neat script devolved into chaos, mysterious symbols dancing on the margins, culminating in a chilling declaration. The subject no longer responds to my signals. She has chosen to ignore me. No one ignores me. Forensic scrutiny unearthed fingerprints that defied identification, a labyrinth of hidden passages snaking through the building's infrastructure, designed with meticulous precision. These concealed pathways interconnected 5 apartments, converging upon Sarah Coleman's dwelling alone, shrouded in enigmatic significance. Interviews with residents birthed whispers of the past, former tenants haunted by a sense of being watched, unexplained disturbances echoing through the walls. A breakthrough emerged as forensic analysis unveiled microscopic traces of blood, linking a vanished soul, Martin Weaver, to the shadows within the walls. Delving into Martin's disappearance, a pattern emerged: Edward, a recluse with a penchant for silence, a transient figure traversing through apartment buildings, leaving behind whispers of unease and vanished souls. The trail led to a desolate cabin, a sanctuary laced with secrets, a macabre shrine to the lives intertwined in a web of voyeurism and trepidation. As the truth unfurled, investigators were led to a chilling revelation in the cabin's wake, a grim testament to Edward's twisted obsessions, a legacy of vanished souls etched in blood and bone. The hunt for Edward, now known as Edward Mercer, continued, his shadow looming over a tapestry of vanished lives and unspeakable horrors. Through the looking glass of time, Detective Morris contemplates the void left in the wake of Sarah's disappearance, haunted by the phantom echoes of footsteps in the night, the harrowing silence that followed each tap on the ceiling. And in the depths of solitude, as night falls, he finds himself gazing upward, listening intently, wondering if the walls hold secrets unseen, and if another soul lingers in the shadows, waiting to be heard. Story 21. Nestled within the heart of a quaint suburban neighborhood, a house stood silent and unassuming, its past shrouded in secrets waiting to be unveiled. Rebecca Morgan, a woman with a gentle spirit and a curious mind, found herself drawn to the attic one stormy evening, compelled by the necessity to mend a leak in the roof. Reluctantly ascending the creaking stairs, she pushed open the attic door to reveal a world frozen in time. The attic was a forgotten realm, a sanctuary for dust and cobwebs that clung to every surface like a shroud of memories long abandoned. Amidst the shadows, a lone figure beckoned to Rebecca, a dollhouse, ancient and eerie in its intricate detail. Tiny furniture adorned the rooms, each piece meticulously placed as if frozen in a moment of unseen activity. Yet as Rebecca peered closer, a shiver crept down her spine, unsettling her very core. The figures within the dollhouse were not mere dolls, they were miniature replicas of her own family. Each tiny carving bore a striking resemblance to their real-life counterparts, capturing every nuance and detail with unsettling accuracy. Every family member was represented, every detail mirrored except for one. In the corner of the miniature living room, where Rebecca's likeness should have sat, stood a tiny wooden figure by the attic door, gazing out with eyes that seemed to follow her every move. A chill swept through Rebecca at the realization that this dollhouse held secrets far beyond her understanding. Running a trembling finger along the roof of the dollhouse, she felt the indent where the miniature version of herself stood sentinel. The discovery sent a ripple of unease through her, a sensation that lingered long after the initial shock had faded. This dollhouse did not belong in this attic, it did not belong to her childhood home, but to a rental property her family had recently moved into. Fearing the unknown and grappling with the weight of this sinister revelation, Rebecca made a frantic call to law enforcement, ushering in a cascade of events that would unravel a mystery beyond comprehension. Detective Sarah Harmon, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for detail, was called to the scene, dismissing the family's fears initially as mere paranoia or a cruel prank. However, as the investigation unfolded, a chilling reality began to take shape. The miniature figures were not mere curiosities, but intricate tools of surveillance, each equipped with microscopic cameras that peered into the lives of the unsuspecting family. The dollhouse was a twisted hub of observation, capturing the essence of the Morgans' daily routines with eerie precision. Forensic teams delved deeper, uncovering hidden truths that defied logic and reason. Beneath the veil of normalcy, a dark underbelly emerged, a hidden entrance in the pantry leading to a makeshift living space where an intruder had resided, unbeknownst to the family above. The absence of forced entry confounded investigators, leading them down a path of shadows and whispered secrets. Piecing together fragmented clues and digital footprints, the investigation led to a small apartment across town, a den of obsession and possession that mirrored the horrors of the dollhouse. Martin Wells, the son of the previous homeowners, emerged as the puppeteer behind the twisted game, his mind consumed by a possessive delusion that transcended reality. Wells' motives, though incomprehensible to the rational mind, spoke of a deep-seated need for control and dominance over the lives of others. His obsession with the dollhouses, each a macabre reflection of a stolen existence, painted a portrait of a man teetering on the edge of madness, a man who sought solace in the shadows of other people's lives. As the truth unraveled in the harsh light of justice, Wells remained eerily composed, his words a chilling echo of a fractured mind. The court proceedings revealed a tapestry of crime stalking, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, a litany of sins that echoed through the halls of justice. The judge's gavel fell with a resounding finality, condemning Wells to a fate befitting his twisted deeds. Yet the scars left on the Morgan family ran deep, etched into their souls by the specter of a man who saw them not as individuals, but as mere playthings in his grand design. And so, as the echoes of the case faded into the annals of history, the house in the suburban neighborhood stood silent once more, its walls holding the whispers of a past best left forgotten. Rebecca Morgan, now a survivor of a nightmare not of her making, sought solace in a new home far from the shadows of the past, haunted by the lingering fear that somewhere in the darkness, a miniature version of herself still danced to the whims of a madman's hand. Story 22. In the depths of the attic, concealed beneath a worn blanket, they stumbled upon it. A porcelain doll, ancient and fragile, with eyes of painted blue that seemed to hold secrets untold. Sarah and Michael, a young couple captivated by the elegance of the Victorian house they had acquired, brushed off the doll as just another forgotten relic of the past. Little did they know, that night would mark the beginning of a haunting mystery that would unravel before their very eyes. As they retired to bed, a peculiar sensation lingered in the air, a weightiness that seemed to suffocate the silence. Morning broke, and the doll was no longer nestled in the attic shadows. It now sat ominously at the edge of their bed, a silent sentinel watching over them in the dim light. Detective Rachel Winters, a woman of keen intuition, was summoned on a crisp autumn morning to the scene of a peculiar tragedy. The male victim, found in a futile attempt to flee, bore an expression of terror etched into his features. His counterpart, the female victim, lay in the master bedroom contorted in an unnatural pose, her eyes wide with fear. The meticulous arrangement of the bodies hinted at a macabre intention, as if they were mere puppets in a sinister play. As Detective Winters delved into the investigation, a tapestry of eerie details began to unfold. Neighbors whispered of shadows dancing in empty windows and ghostly laughter echoing through the night. The forensic team unearthed traces of antique fabrics, reminiscent of doll clothing, scattered around the crime scene, a puzzle with no logical solution, no tangible evidence of an intruder. The dark history of the house emerged, painted with the brushstrokes of tragedy. Previous owners had met untimely fates, their deaths shrouded in enigmatic circumstances. A common thread emerged: each had tampered with the attic space, unwittingly awakening a malevolent force that lingered within the walls. A revelation surfaced from the depths of the past, linking the victims to a doll maker whose creations held a sinister power. The final doll, a macabre replica of his deceased daughter, bore an uncanny resemblance to the doll discovered by Sarah and Michael. The photographs hidden in the attic whispered of a chilling truth: the doll held a life of its own, moving between frames as if guided by an unseen hand. As the investigation veered into the realm of the supernatural, a distant relative of the doll maker unveiled secrets of arcane rituals and forbidden knowledge. Objects infused with human essence, spirits bound to inanimate forms, the line between reality and nightmare blurred into a sinister tapestry of the unknown. The case took a perplexing turn when Detective Winters found herself at the mercy of forces beyond her comprehension. The doll, a harbinger of misfortune, vanished from its confines, leaving a trail of confusion and inexplicable events in its wake. The detective, untouched but bewildered, grappled with a reality bent by unseen forces that defied logic. The house exchanged hands once more, its legacy of darkness casting a pall over its grandeur. The new owners, wary of the attic's secrets, left it undisturbed, a silent witness to the horrors that had transpired within its walls. Yet whispers lingered in the neighborhood, a spectral presence, a childlike laughter that danced on the edge of perception, a reminder of a past that refused to be forgotten. Detective Winters, burdened by the weight of unresolved mysteries, chose to depart the realm of shadows and whispers. In her final act, she locked away a fragment of the past, a photograph that bore witness to the malevolent power that had gripped the house for generations. The dollmaker's legacy, a tale of twisted artistry and spectral entrapment, faded into the annals of history, a haunting memory of lives intertwined with forces beyond mortal ken. And so the house stood in silent vigil, its secrets buried deep within its time-worn walls. The doll, a phantom of the past, eluded capture, slipping through the fingers of those who sought to unravel its enigmatic allure. The deaths of Sarah and Michael, like spectral echoes in the night, whispered of a darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of perception, a mystery that would endure in the whispers of the wind and the shadows of twilight. Story 23. The tale began when Michael and Sarah Klein, the new inhabitants of a quaint Victorian-era home, stumbled upon a peculiar discovery hidden beneath peeling wallpaper. What they initially dismissed as mere decor damage unraveled into a chilling mystery that beckoned to be unraveled. Layer by layer, as they gingerly stripped away the worn wallpaper, a haunting narrative emerged. Inked in a frenzied hand, a single name repeated itself incessantly across the wall. Eleanor Winters. This name, foreign to them, held a weight of history and tragedy that transcended the confines of the room. Intrigued and unsettled, Sarah and Michael delved deeper into the enigma. Online searches led them to a startling revelation, a missing persons case from long ago, eerily mirroring the features of the woman who had sold them the house, Margaret Cavendish. The resemblance between the two women was uncanny, sparking a sense of unease that lingered in the shadows of their thoughts. The charm of their new abode, with its vintage allure and whispered tales of bygone days, now cloaked in an air of mystery, beckoned the couple to uncover the secrets veiled within its walls. A water stain in the master bedroom acted as the catalyst for their journey into the past. Sarah's keen eye caught the yellowing blemish on the floral wallpaper, prompting them to peel back the layers of time. What they unearthed beneath the surface narrated a story long forgotten, a name etched in desperation, pleading to be remembered. Eleanor Winters, Sarah whispered, her fingers tracing the haunting script. The discovery cast a shadow over their tranquil existence, igniting a curiosity that bordered on obsession. Their nights were no longer spent in peaceful slumber, but in fervent research, tracing the threads of history that intertwined with their present reality. The revelation of Eleanor Winters' disappearance decades ago echoed through the corridors of their home, urging them to seek answers buried in the past. As they delved deeper, connecting dots that spanned generations, a chilling truth began to unfurl. Eleanor's vanishing intersected with the enigmatic figure of Margaret Cavendish, the woman who had passed on the house to them, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a legacy shrouded in darkness. The walls of their home became a canvas of secrets, each layer peeled back, revealing a fragment of a story that refused to be forgotten. The name Eleanor Winters, once a mystery, now whispered echoes of a past long concealed. Forensic teams descended upon their residence, turning it into a stage for an investigation that transcended time. The hidden spaces within the house yielded cryptic clues, leading to revelations that blurred the lines between reality and illusion. Beneath the floorboards, a trove of identities emerged, each bearing the semblance of a woman lost in the labyrinth of her own mind. Eleanor Winters and Margaret Cavendish intertwined in a dance of deception, orchestrated by a fractured psyche seeking solace in stolen lives. The truth, when unearthed, bore the weight of tragedy. Eleanor's remains, unearthed from the depths of the garden, brought closure to a chapter long forgotten. Rebecca Eldridge, the elusive figure behind the veils of identity, emerged as the orchestrator of a tale that spanned decades. Her fragmented mind, a tapestry of personas woven from shattered memories, bore witness to a crime buried in the recesses of her consciousness. The walls, once silent witnesses, now stood as monuments to a life lost and a soul fractured beyond repair. For Michael and Sarah, the house they had envisioned as a sanctuary became a nexus of haunting truths, a testament to the fragility of sanity and the depths of human despair. As they watched the events unfold, a sense of melancholy settled over them, mingling with the whispers of the past that lingered in the air. And so, the house that once sheltered dreams now bore witness to a nightmare laid bare a reminder that behind the facade of serenity, secrets lie waiting to be unveiled, even as the world drifts into slumber, cradled by the mysteries that whisper in the night. Story 24. The motel stood as a relic of a bygone era, its faded sign barely visible in the dim glow of the streetlights. It was the type of place where transient souls sought refuge for a single night, a place where stories whispered but never lingered. The receptionist slid the tarnished key across the counter, his eyes betraying a hint of unease. "Just remember, avoid the last door on the left," he murmured cryptically. Intrigue tugged at her curiosity like a siren's song. That evening the hallway stretched before her like a shadowy labyrinth. The walls seemed to absorb what little light dared to penetrate the gloom. Pausing before the ominous door, she felt a shiver run down her spine. The doorknob was chilling to the touch, sending a jolt of apprehension through her. To the naked eye, the door appeared no different from its companions, but as she pressed her ear against its surface, a haunting sound emanated from within a rhythmic, labored breath, as if the room itself was alive. Detective Morgan Reed found herself at the scene, the yellow tape a stark barrier between her and the unfolding mystery. The air was heavy with the metallic tang of blood, a scent that clawed at her senses. The room bore witness to a macabre dance of juxtapositions, a pristine bathroom, an undisturbed bed, and at the heart of it all, a life extinguished in the most brutal manner. The young woman lay motionless on the floor, her golden locks splayed around her like a halo, her vacant eyes fixed on the ceiling in a silent scream frozen in time. Kneeling beside the victim, Reed absorbed the gravity of the moment, mindful not to disturb the delicate balance of evidence meticulously marked out across the room. The forensic technician, his voice devoid of emotion, confirmed the grim pattern that had begun to emerge. Third one this season, same as the others. Reed's silence spoke volumes as she pieced together the puzzle before her. The victim's attire spoke of a world far removed from the dingy motel, a stark contrast that hinted at a deeper layer to the tragedy. A designer handbag lay open, its contents untouched, dispelling the notion of a robbery gone awry. This was a crime born of something more insidious, something that lurked beneath the surface. Back at the precinct, the photos on the board painted a chilling portrait of a sinister thread linking three women, all fallen prey to a predator lurking in the shadows. The whispers of a serial killer cast a pall over the community, igniting a race against time to unravel the enigma of the door on the left case. As the days bled into each other, the investigation delved deeper into the dark heart of the matter. Surveillance footage yielded no answers, leaving more questions in its wake. The victim, Elaine Werner, emerged as a figure cloaked in mystery, her life a tapestry of secrets waiting to be unraveled. A breakthrough came in the form of a clandestine relationship hinted at by Werner's sister, a man known only as C, a man from her workplace shrouded in shadows and deceit. The pieces began to coalesce as Reed delved into Werner's professional life, unearthing a connection that would shatter the facade of normalcy. Charles Emerson, the senior vice president, stood at the nexus of the storm, his polished exterior masking a darkness that threatened to consume all in its path. His denials crumbled under the weight of evidence, revealing a web of deceit woven with meticulous precision. In the interrogation room, Emerson's mask slipped, revealing a chilling emptiness where remorse should have resided. His confession laid bare the twisted motives that drove him to commit unspeakable acts in the name of self-preservation. The trial was a mere formality, a final act in a tragedy that had unfolded with cold, calculated intent. Justice was served, but for Reed, the echoes of the case lingered like a ghostly whisper in the night. The media dubbed it the door on the left case, a cautionary tale of the darkness that dwells within seemingly ordinary facades. As Reed walked down hotel corridors, she couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden behind closed doors, what stories whispered in the stillness of the night. In the evidence locker, the keys to that fateful room remained, silent witnesses to a chapter that had come to a close but left scars that would never fully heal. Some doors, once opened, reveal a darkness that can never be fully contained, a darkness that lingers in the shadows, waiting to be awakened. Story 25. In the quiet stillness of the night, a pocket dial echoed through the empty house, an accidental transmission of static and muffled sounds. The operator nearly dismissed it as nothing more than a glitch until a voice, soft and urgent, broke through the noise. A woman's voice, filled with fear and desperation, whispered, "He's here." He, and then silence enveloped the line once more. The abandoned house, a relic of the past, stood silent and eerie, untouched by the passage of time. It had belonged to the Sullivan family once, before tragedy forced them to flee. A devastating fire had ravaged the West Wing, driving them away to seek solace elsewhere. Since then, the house had stood empty, a mere shell of memories and secrets. Detective Morgan Reed found herself drawn to the mystery of the abandoned property. The phone, illuminated by an ethereal glow, lay on the dusty kitchen counter, a silent witness to the enigma unfolding. Pressing the playback button repeatedly, Morgan listened to the haunting whisper that echoed through the empty room's words tinged with sorrow, echoing from a realm beyond comprehension. As the investigation unfolded, Detective Walsh uncovered a chilling revelation. The phone belonged to Catherine Sullivan, a woman who had perished in a tragic car accident 3 years prior. The pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together, leaving Morgan grappling with the inexplicable nature of the situation. The forensic team scoured the house for clues, but the answers remained elusive. No fingerprints, no footprints, no tangible evidence to explain the mysterious call that defied logic. The phone seemed to have materialized out of thin air, a ghostly presence in the abandoned house. The recording, a mere 11 seconds of static and breathing, became the focal point of their inquiry. Voice analysis confirmed the impossible. The voice on the line matched Catherine Sullivan's with uncanny accuracy, as if her spirit lingered in the echoes of the past. Interviews with those who knew Catherine shed little light on the enigma. Her father professed ignorance, her mother crumbled under the weight of the whispers from beyond. Only one person remained at the center of the storm: Mark Jennings, Catherine's former lover, whose alibi crumbled under scrutiny. It was a journal hidden away among Catherine's belongings that unraveled the tapestry of deceit. The pages revealed a harrowing tale of love turned to control, of fear lurking in the shadows of a once idyllic relationship. In her final entry, Catherine had foretold her fate, a chilling prophecy of a life cut short by malevolent hands. As the truth came to light, Mark's facade crumbled, exposing the darkness that dwelled within. The buried phone, unearthed from the depths of the earth, bore witness to the horrors that had transpired, a trail of deceit and manipulation leading to a tragic end. In a final act of defiance, Mark had crafted the ghostly call, a macabre charade to torment those he had wronged. But justice, relentless and unwavering, caught up with him in the end. The voice he sought to silence reverberated through the halls of the courtroom, speaking truth to power. As the gavel fell, sealing Mark's fate, Catherine's mother clutched the journal to her chest, a silent tribute to her daughter's unwavering spirit. The phone, now a relic of the past, sits in the evidence locker, a reminder of the resilience of those who refuse to be silenced. And as the night falls over the abandoned house, whispers of a bygone era linger in the air, a testament to the enduring power of voices that refuse to be extinguished, even in death's embrace. Story 26. In the quiet anticipation of her baby's arrival, she decided to refresh the nursery with a new coat of paint. The walls, once a faded blue, held secrets within their layers, stories of years gone by. As she carefully applied the first strokes of white paint, a hidden message began to emerge from beneath the surface, faint letters slowly becoming sharper and clearer. A chilling command whispered from the past, "Don't let it hear you." Her heart skipped a beat, and as she took a step back, her eyes caught sight of something unsettling, tiny handprints imprinted in the fresh paint, too high up for any child to reach. This discovery within the nursery of the Morgan residence marked the start of what would later be known as the Whispering House case. The young couple had purchased the old Victorian-style home at an unbelievably low price, unaware of the dark history that lurked within its walls. Detective Sarah Klein, notebook in hand, arrived at the doorstep of the pregnant woman whose weary eyes told of sleepless nights. The woman recounted finding the hidden message and eerie handprints, mentioning how the previous owners had vanished overnight, leaving behind only essential belongings in their hasty departure. Inside the aged home, Detective Klein's footsteps echoed on creaking floorboards as she made her way to the nursery. The partially painted wall still bore the unsettling message, a warning left behind by unseen hands. Next to it, 5 child-sized handprints marked the wall, a ghostly reminder of the past. Back at the precinct, the detective delved into the property's history, uncovering a troubling pattern of short-lived occupants and disturbing child welfare reports. The house's dark past led back to Eleanor Blackwood, a widow who once ran an orphanage on the property. Rumors of 5 missing children under her care surfaced, their fate shrouded in mystery. Former residents shared accounts of eerie occurrences, always culminating in a chilling message appearing beneath layers of fresh paint in the nursery. Handprints and warnings etched into the walls by unseen forces, a silent plea for discovery. As the investigation deepened, ground-penetrating radar revealed a grim secret hidden beneath the basement floor. 5 child-sized shapes, remnants of a tragic past. Breaking through the concrete exposed the truth, confirming the long-buried remains of the missing orphans. Each child bore a pendant with their name, finally laying to rest the haunting tale of their disappearance. In a bid to uncover more evidence, luminol was sprayed across the nursery walls, revealing a haunting sight: countless handprints, invisible to the naked eye, glowing in the darkness. Eleanor's twisted motives came to light through recovered journals, detailing her macabre beliefs about harnessing the energy of orphaned children for her own gain. The case concluded with a somber burial for the victims, their names now remembered as victims of a heinous crime. The pregnant couple chose never to return to the tainted house, leaving it to stand as a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. Detective Klein's final report captured the eerie remnants of the past, the handprints and messages that lingered beyond physical closure. Despite the physical demolition of the nursery walls, workers reported hearing whispers and laughter echoing from the debris, a spectral reminder of the children's presence. The condemned house became a cold case file, a testament to the unanswered questions that lingered in the air. The detective held onto a haunting photograph, a testament to the lingering spirits, 5 luminous handprints marking a dark chapter in the house's history, a tale that time and fresh paint could never erase. Story 27, The Enigmatic Victorian. She crossed the threshold, the musty air swirling with dancing dust particles. The abandoned house stood frozen in time, its walls shedding layers of paint, its furniture draped in ghostly sheets. Each step she took felt like a journey into a moment suspended in the past, a moment untouched by the passage of time except for one peculiar detail. The doors, intriguing portals that defied logic, leading her back to the same room no matter which one she chose. A labyrinth of passageways that always circled back to the parlor, trapping her in a loop of confusion. The only path out seemed to be the way she had entered, yet when she turned to retrace her steps, the front door had vanished into thin air. The discovery of Morgan Pierce's lifeless form transformed the once abandoned Victorian house from a mere local curiosity to a chilling crime scene. Detective Sarah Lind stood at the threshold, observing as forensic experts moved through the dimly lit interior like silent apparitions. The house had garnered a reputation among the townsfolk, a place where compasses spun erratically, where whispers of unseen watchers lingered in the shadows. But now, beneath its decaying facade, lay secrets far more sinister than mere urban legends. The initial assessment indicates she passed approximately 3 days ago, the medical examiner murmured, his words barely audible in the heavy silence. The cause appears to be asphyxiation. Morgan's lifeless form had been discovered seated in an ancient chair in the parlor, her gaze fixed towards the entrance as though awaiting a visitor. Her expression serene, hands folded neatly in her lap. No signs of struggle marred her peaceful countenance, no traces of defensive wounds to be found. The scene exuded a haunting stillness that unsettled even the most seasoned investigators. "Who found the body?" Lind inquired, her gaze scanning over her notes. "A real estate agent showing the property to potential buyers," her partner replied. They entered, spotted her seated there, mistaking her for a trespasser until they drew closer. The house had remained abandoned since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, nearly half a decade prior. Legal disputes had left the property in a state of abandonment, unwanted, unsold, and forgotten by most save for the occasional vandal or thrill seeker. Morgan Pierce, a 26-year-old graduate student delving into architectural anomalies for her thesis, had been described by friends as meticulous, driven, and captivated by spaces that defied conventional norms. The allure of the enigmatic Victorian, with its reputation for disorienting visitors, must have beckoned to her like a siren's call. Her roommate reported her missing 2 days prior, Lind noted. She mentioned visiting the house where people get lost for her research. As the investigation unfolded, it came to light that Morgan had frequented the house in the weeks leading up to her demise. Her journal entries chronicled strange acoustics, sudden drops in temperature, and doors that seemed to lead to ever-changing destinations with each opening. In her final entry, she spoke of bringing specialized equipment to capture what she termed spatial inconsistencies. Yet, that equipment remained conspicuously absent. During the autopsy, an unexpected revelation emerged. Traces of a rare alkaloid were detected in Morgan's system, derived from a plant utilized in certain shamanic rituals. While the substance was known to induce disorientation and vivid hallucinations, the levels found were insufficient to be fatal. She wasn't one to partake in recreational drugs, her boyfriend insisted during questioning. Morgan held her research methodologies to a high standard. She would not have compromised her perception willingly. Digital forensics unveiled fragments of deleted messages on Morgan's phone, exchanges with an individual who shared her fascination with the house, someone claiming to grasp its enigmatic depths. The conversations grew increasingly intimate and cryptic. The house retains its memories, one message hinted. It yearns for someone to comprehend. The trail led detectives to Adam Reeves, an architectural historian whose correspondence with Morgan had blossomed from professional discourse into a more personal connection. Reeves, renowned for his expertise in rare spatial phenomena, expressed profound grief upon learning of Morgan's fate. "The house possesses a reputation," he confessed. The original architect wove optical illusions and deceptive perspectives into its design, intending to bewilder and disorient. Morgan believed there existed a deeper layer and essence beyond mere tricks of construction. However, Reeves provided a solid alibi for the estimated time of Morgan's demise, backed by security footage showing him lecturing at a university symposium miles away. A pivotal breakthrough materialized from an unexpected source, the grandson of a leaner Blackwood, now residing overseas. Contacted by investigators, he unveiled a long-guarded family secret. "My grandmother was not the sole Blackwood to perish within that house," he divulged. "Others met their end there, always discovered in the parlor, always appearing serene. The family dubbed it the claiming." Furnishing investigators with decades-old journals, he unveiled a grim pattern: individuals spending prolonged periods within the house, eventually succumbing to what the family cryptically labeled the influence. A secondary sweep of the property unearthed a concealed compartment behind the parlor's hearth. Within, investigators stumbled upon Morgan's missing equipment alongside a startling array of artifacts from diverse indigenous cultures, meticulously arranged in a precise geometric layout. Nestled at the center rested a weathered figurine, its features smoothed by generations of handling. Analysis identified the carving as a representation of a deity linked to liminal spaces, thresholds between realms. Residues on the artifacts aligned with the alkaloid detected in Morgan's system. The case took a dark twist as forensic examination of dust patterns within the house hinted at a presence beyond Morgan. Partial fingerprints, neither belonging to Morgan nor any documented visitors, were retrieved from doorknobs throughout the residence. 3 weeks into the inquiry, Adam Reeves was discovered lifeless in his home. Mirroring Morgan's demise, he sat poised towards the entrance, a tranquil expression adorning his features, the same alkaloid detected in his system. Clutched in his hand lay a key that defied any lock within his apartment, but seamlessly fit the hidden compartment within the Victorian. In his final correspondence, penned to himself as a testament, Reeves inscribed, "The house does not ensnare you physically, it ensnares your perception." Morgan's insight was valid: the doors laid where they always have, yet something tricks you into believing you wander in circles. Once you realize the truth, departure is within reach, but by then the allure is irresistible. The case remains officially unresolved, catalogued as suspicious deaths under scrutiny. The Victorian has since been condemned, its access cordoned off by authorities. Nevertheless, whispers persist of spectral lights flickering within on certain nights, and of visitors who vanish without a trace. Some locals assert that the house claims those who delve too deeply into its mysteries. Others speculate that Morgan and Reeves unearthed a force ancient and potent, residing within the interstices of conventional reality. The truth remains as elusive as an exit within a house where every door circles back to the beginning.